Is Larson whistling?
I don't know, where's the whistling coming from?
Confuse the Christmas spirit over here.
I see you are, yeah.
Yeah, except the tune was not recognizable as anything we know.
Well, not by the heathen, not by the heathen ear.
Mr. Chairman, you're live on YouTube. It's ready.
Okay, all right, we're back in session, and first up on the agenda is the Supreme Court budget, and welcome, Chief Justice Fox, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, and incoming members of the Joint Appropriations Committee. It's an honor to be here before you today. I won't take very long. I did hear your admonition this morning, Mr. Chairman, to the agencies to get right to business, but that made me want to clarify that the judicial branch is a branch of government, not an agency. We perform a constitutional function for the people of Wyoming. We don't really consider ourselves a bureaucracy. We consider ourselves people who serve that constitutional function. So, sorry, had to take a small detour. But our exception request is very modest and won't take long to address. In fact, it's a net of only $25,708 over last year, or the first year of the biennium. So the legislature awarded us 3 time-limited positions in '22. Those will expire at the end of this biennium, and we are only asking to fill 2 of those because we think part of the purpose of having time-limited positions is to test the need and usefulness of them. So we're asking for those 2 positions because they have proved critical to public transparency in our record keeping and providing records in response to public requests, and also to keep court clerks and judges educated and current in performing their functions. So those 2 positions with salary and benefits would total $180,708 annually. And that is why in net summary, the request is net new funding of $25,708 for the rest of this biennium. This is a pretty lean request, especially in light of the uptick in growth in Wyoming and our obligation to stay current with the public's needs. As we all know, there can be case growth in new property rights disputes, new criminal cases, new tax challenges, or other civil and juvenile cases that result. And our courts continue to face new challenges with more litigants who are coming to court without lawyers, more people with mental illness. So still, this judicial branch budget before you is nearly flat. On that, I think we provided a brief informational piece on the judiciary to share. I think staff shared that with you as well as your incoming members. I hope you find it informative. Not that one, Representative Larson. I mean, that is one of them. How about that one? Thank you. Both of them are useful. This front and back one with the pie chart that shows the breakdown in case types in our district and circuit courts is the one that we just provided today. The courts stand ready to steadfastly serve the people of Wyoming. We do not write the laws. You, as legislators, write the laws. We don't write the Constitution. You, as legislators and the people of Wyoming, do that part. Our job is to apply the law to the cases that Wyoming citizens bring to our courts. And as you can see from this handout, our courts are delivering on solving people's legal disputes every day. Thank you for your consideration of this supplemental budget request. We stand ready to serve the people of Wyoming with this lean budget. And see, we could have done this before lunch. We stand for any questions.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Justice Fox. Could you remind me, I think we talked about this at our standard budget. If we adopted this is going to change just a little bit, but your biennial appropriation would be 85 million. What percentage of that is just personnel compensation?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, it's around 80% of our total budget is for salaries. In our branch, we don't really have programs, we don't have property, we just have judges and people who
Staff.
support judges.
Thank you.
Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you. So I'm really curious on the graph. In the district courts, only 12% of the time is in general litigation, general civil litigation. And that to me is remarkable. So I wonder how long this data has been kept and if that's consistent, or how this graph has changed over time in the last 5 or 10 or 20 years.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chair, this graph doesn't represent time, it represents case numbers.
Just caseload.
Oh, actual filings. So if we gave it to you as caseload, it would look different. Probably general civil would be a bigger piece of the pie, if you're following me, because I think
Yeah.
our general civil cases probably take more of the court's resources. So this is just flat numbers, which are not 100%, or they're not representative of time investment. As to your question on how that changes over time, I don't have that at my fingertips, do you? We could certainly provide it.
And I'd also be curious to see how it changes between judicial districts. And then I
Mr.
presume you have
Chairman,
that breakdown.
Mr. Co-Chair, we could provide the breakdown by district.
Well, I'm probably one of the only ones that really are interested, but I'd like to see it at some point. I'll come by.
We will provide that to you for your own special curiosity.
Okay.
Any other members of the current JAC have any questions, comment? Representative Stitt.
Mr. Chairman, Justice Fox, I was happy to see that Ben Birmingham is appointed to the Chancery Court. And as he was doing the work of 2 or 3 people, I was wondering how if that creates a hole there for you to fill then in other areas.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Stith, that is very true. The governor did just select Ben Birmingham as the incoming Chancery Court judge. He'll take over January 1st. We're excited about that because I think the case filings will really speed up once they know who the judge is going to be and that it is someone of Ben Birmingham's abilities. You're also right that we'll be losing him from our admin staff at the court, and it will take 3 people to replace him. So we'll take a couple more.
Anything further from the current committee? Incoming committee, any questions or comments? Justice Fox, I wonder if, for the benefit of the incoming committee, if you might, it's very common for us as Appropriations Committee when something comes that's new to say, well, we'll give you the budget for 2 years or 4 years, report back to us. And that's what you're doing here now for consideration of making them permanent. You said there were 3 positions. You're asking to continue 2. Would you describe for the benefit of the new committee what your take on those 2 positions, what they do and why they're important to continue?
Mr. Chairman, sure, I'd be happy to address that, and Elisa may have something to add. One position is for court records, which doesn't really sound all that exciting, but it is critical. I mean, what courts do is very record intensive. And we need a person to help our court clerks organize court records in a uniform way across the state so that data can be produced in a uniform way. We have some pretty great electronic systems going now, but we still can't provide reliable data if everyone's not inputting it consistently. So that's part of it. But it's also just archiving the records and helping to produce them upon request of the public or the legislature. So that's one position. The other one is in our education department. I understand your new legislators had at least 3 days of training this year, and I heard some legislators saying that was a new and good thing. Training is a good thing. We train our new judges, we train our new law clerks, and then we train them periodically, not law clerks, but court clerks. And then we train them periodically to keep them up to speed, both on the law and on our electronic systems and all that kind of stuff. So those positions have proven to be pretty critical to the functioning of the branch so that we can do our ultimate job of deciding cases for the people of Wyoming.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Anything else for Justice Fox? Hearing nothing? Thank you, Justice Fox. You're right, we could have done it before lunch, but you just never know.
You never know.
You never know. Yeah,
Thank you,
thanks.
Mr.
We appreciate your patience.
Thank you.
Next up, it's our pleasure to welcome State Treasurer Kurt Meyer and Deputy Treasurer Don Williams. It's good to see you both. Good to see you.
Seen.
Who's going to kick it off? Mr. Treasurer, are you going to start?
I'll just introduce Don here.
Okay.
We've got several things that we're looking at. The reason that we're doing this in the supplemental is because we've had some changes and we'll go through
Okay.
those.
Pull that microphone a little closer to you if you could, Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dawn Williams, Deputy State Treasurer. I also am joined today by Katie Smith, our CFO, and Patrick Fleming, our Chief Investment Officer, our CIO, online, should we have any additional questions as we progress through the hearing. Our first request in the budget today is found on page 15, and it's in Unit 602. It's the first, it's a request for a reclassification of a senior accounting specialist position. Within the Financial Accounting Division unit, we have, division, we have units. In the operations unit, we have 2 senior accounting specialists that we're requesting to be reclassified as principal accountants. This is the first one of 2 that we have requested. You'll see the other one in another unit of the budget as we move through. In this first position is responsible for cash management functions for the agency and settles trades, that kind of thing. As we have grown in our asset classes, the more money we make, the more asset classes that we invest in, the more the responsibilities become, just the volume of work increases as well as the complexity of the work. And it's come to our attention that we believe that these analysts we're requiring more of them than the level of the position that they're at. They're right now at what we call in state government a 10, and we would like them to be an 11. And this request is for the funds to reclassify that person for the rest of the biennium, so 15 months.
Which page, Don?
We're on page 15, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
So no net new expenditure, just a reclassification?
Well, actually, Mr. Chairman, there is a new amount that we request. It's $26,950.
Okay.
And that is in other funds. We use investment earnings to pay for those positions.
And these have already been gone through with HR and approved, right?
That's true, Mr. Chairman. The treasurer wants me to remind, is reminding me to tell you that, and it's a good point, that we do have to, before we submit these requests to you, we do have to present them to the Department of Administration and Information, A&I, HR department, to get that approved by them first. We can't even come to you before they give us the permission to justification for this reclassification.
Yeah, so they have already analyzed the different duties and increase in duties of these two positions, and they agreed with us that indeed that the level, new level of authorization or in payment is reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If there are no questions, we'll just move to the next request on page 22 in the unclaimed property unit. We have several requests in unclaimed property. The first request is for an unclaimed property attorney specifically. As this is another program that just continues to grow. This summer, we received almost $300 million from a cryptocurrency firm that was that needed to turn they're operated out of Germany, but they needed to return their assets. They're an American company, so they have to follow unclaimed property laws. So they returned all of the assets for the folks that they were unable to reach, it's unclaimed property, over to us. And so we have been attempting to reach those people and return the funds to them. This, as you might imagine, is a big undertaking. And so we have had, I mean, the amount of our fund tripled overnight. And we were recognizing the need for an attorney position prior to that, but it just exemplifies the fact that this program has just grown and requires the complexities of determining who the rightful owners of these properties are, where they are located, preventing fraud. We're increasing our efforts to reach out to people, not just because of this great influx of money, but in general, because we have a lot of money that we're holding on other people's behalf. So we have determined that the amount of time that unclaimed property issues are being attributed to our general counsel are overwhelming him. We have explored the idea of utilizing the services at the Attorney General's office. They don't have any availability there. They're already tapped with their jobs. They don't have any expertise in unclaimed property. And so we're coming to you to request an attorney position in our office for purposes of unclaimed property. I received an email from the budget division, the budget department, that there was an error in the calculations they provided. So instead of the amount of money, the $232,514 that we're requesting in the budget book, the correct amount is $224,118 for the remainder of the biennium.
Mr. Chairman.
Representative Stitt.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Don. Can you explain that on the unclaimed property? Because it seems like right now the website for the Treasurer's Office works pretty well. It's probably once a month that I end up on behalf of a client just filing a claim for unclaimed property and they get their $112 back or something. It seems like it works really well. The situation you described, I probably didn't understand it, but what is it that the attorney would be doing? Because your normal system seems like it functions really smoothly. Like it's automated, you've done a great job of making it very efficient. But it sounds like it's changed recently that makes it more complicated. You need a lawyer to sort out who gets what, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Stith, I apologize for being confusing about this. We're not requesting the lawyer because of the influx of money or because our website doesn't work. I'm just was giving an example about the additional funds that are coming are a representation of how the program has grown. So the unclaimed property tasks that our current general counsel are doing is researching complex issues, tracing family lineages for claims of these large amounts of money and sometimes smaller amounts of money. Statutory changes. For the last couple of years, we requested an interim topic. We've been committee shopping, frankly, just for somebody to take that up because we need our unclaimed property statutes to be updated and revised to be more modern and to be more commensurate with federal law. Even we haven't updated our statutes since the 80s. So it's just that we have every issue for an unclaimed property case is different, and so it requires a fair amount of research. And fraud issues are prevalent and ever increasing, and it just seems to be taking a lot of time out of our current attorney's day to work on unclaimed properties issues.
Representative, please.
Did you have a follow-up? I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Related to the Coinbase deposit, what is the nexus to Wyoming, or why did they choose Wyoming to be the point of contact for the unclaimed property, or deposit for the unclaimed property? And does the state have to increase or accept any more liability because we've accepted these funds? And then once these funds, the proper owner is determined and this $300 million is whittled down to maybe $30 or $40 million, could the position go away? Could this be a time-limited position due to the fact that this huge influx has came about?
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Lots of questions in there, Representative Walters, so please remind me if I forget to answer one. So again, I did a poor job of explaining why we need an attorney not related necessarily to this influx of Coinbase. So the first answer would be that no, I don't believe that these, this would be a time-limited position. The issues that we're having are already existing. One of the things that our current attorney needed to look into was, if we do accept these funds from Coinbase, what are we looking into? Do we have liability issues? That's the kind of thing that he has to look into right now. So when we did accept these funds, the short answer on why did Wyoming and how did Wyoming get to do it, Wyoming said yes. So many states were intimidated by the amount of money, concerned about the ability to be able to process the amount of claims, that sort of thing. And so as you might imagine, or you know how we hear about Delaware all the time, about LLCs and how they are also a leader in unclaimed property funds. And we have, like, they've accepted unclaimed property funds from MoneyGram. MoneyGram is a check cashing service that used to turn over all of their unclaimed property to the state of Delaware. States then sued, got together and said, hey, you're collecting a whole lot of money that probably should be parsed out to the individual states of where those MoneyGrams were issued. And so now we have been receiving the MoneyGram funds, and they've been parsed out state by state. But that's just an example of how a company will say, we'd rather just put this in one place than have to figure out which state all of this money belongs to. So that's kind of what happened with Coinbase. And Coinbase had to choose, and so the reason that didn't work, that kind of parsing didn't work out in the United States, is because these are foreign owners. So they needed somewhere in the United States that would take on the task of trying to find these foreign owners. And so we did that, and so like I said, that is not related to why we needed the attorney, but the fact that we've taken on more and complex, it just added another layer. So the next thing that you asked was, or that you mentioned, is that someday we'll have it down to 30 million. We don't ever think that it's gonna be down to 30 million. We're hopeful to get even half of it returned, because all of these foreign wires, we have to wire the funds. We can't send checks to foreign countries. If you're sending a check to Ethiopia, they don't have a bank down the dirt, and I'm not being facetious, down the dirt road to be able to go and cash a check. That also they're concerned about fraud issues as well in some of these countries. There's a lot of stories about how we're having to work with our bank. Wells Fargo has been a great partner in this, is to return these funds. But so some of the funds, it's a $10 wiring fee. So if you have a $10 or $5 amount of money of unclaimed property, the chances of you requesting to refund those, or to return or receive a refund of those funds, is smaller, because your fee is higher or the same as the amount of money that you are expecting to be returned. We also received several million dollars, tens of millions of dollars of unidentifiable owners of this currency. So the chances of us being able to find those people are going to be slim to none as well. So we're hopeful that at some point, someday, we would be able to return half of what we received from Coinbase. And I think I hit them all.
Please, yes.
Thank you. You did a great job with the initial round of questions. How much do you estimate the state will make in interest off of this money while we have it? And then has this increased the workload significantly for the Unclaimed Properties Division?
So I just figured that
Beyond-
out, if you want to know.
Oh, I would love
Okay,
Beyond
so-
what they can handle?
So it's in excess, at 4.5%, less the amount of money that we need for positions is going to be in excess of $11 million. So without it, it's a little over around 1170, I guess it's 11,725. You take this out, then you're down to about 11.5. I don't know if we have one more position as far as the clerical position, do we?
No.
Not on this one? Okay, so, yeah, so you're essentially getting about $11.5 million that goes to the general fund. And to the aspect of whether this was a good decision or poor decision, essentially, as Don said, is that half of that money will probably stay there. And essentially what you're gonna do is have, somewhere around $130 million that's gonna continue receiving interest at, basically about the same as the state agency pool. So around 4+% or treasuries around 4 to 5%. So,
Mr. Chairman?
Anything else? Oh, please, go ahead, and then Representative Larson.
Okay, I apologize, Mr. Chairman, thank you. One of the things that made us, the treasurer, and you make a good point, the increased interest income is what did, it caused me to be more confident, as confident as one person can be for requesting positions from the legislature, but a little more confident because we have the money to be able to fund it from this new interest. And as the treasurer mentioned, just a good point to reiterate that all of the funding that is not retained for the operation of the Unclaimed Property Division is returned to the general fund. However, in recent years, we haven't really been able to return much over. It's been a wash. The amount of money that we've earned from the deposits in the Unclaimed Property Fund have been used to pay for the division. And I do believe you asked, did we request an additional position for this? And we did not, but it has been a challenge to keep up with the workload. We thought it would be a challenge, but you know how that is.
yeah, and I think to the point that this was a position where our attorneys were probably doing about 2.5 times on a workload of, you'd almost need a half attorney, and we've been farming out a little bit more to Jackson Walker because of two things, their area expertise and the kind of overload on the investment side. So this position would be helpful in taking part of the load away from our current attorneys, and then taking that load away. So we can concentrate on the what we really do, and the other part of our shop is being an investment firm.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Representative Larson was next, and then Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don, you make a good case, and I get it. But this question is because you brought the subject up about the Attorney General's office, them not having staff. So would it be better, would you prefer this person be in the Attorney General's office? Just clarify that. I think I know the answer, but I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Representative, of course, we would rather have it in our agency, because then, should there be any other ways that this person was available to help with investment office issues, they would be available. The other thing about putting it in the Attorney General's office is we don't have a dedicated person necessarily then to provide those services that we would need.
Okay. Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don, you brought us down this rabbit hole, so I just gotta ask, what's our statutory responsibility to do this job? I mean, where does this fall in? I mean, it sounds like we saw an opportunity, or what I'm gleaming from this conversation is that we saw an opportunity where we could get an investment vehicle that, while we parse this money out, but where does it fit in statutorily with the mission?
Mr. Chairman?
Please, yeah.
Senator, to clarify, where does taking the Coinbase money fit into? Mr. Chairman, because we take on behalf of rightful owners of property, that we collect that money and try to return it to folks, to citizens.
Follow up,
Please.
but what was the connection for, it was a Wyoming company that did this,
No, Mr. Chairman, no.
so we just go around searching around, and whenever we see it, we're just like Cape Crusaders that go around and just, we find these and go.
Or Crusaders, if not caped.
Yeah, caped or uncaped, I guess.
Mr. Chairman, if you're going to crusade, you might as well wear a cape. However, we don't crusade. We did not crusade. We did not seek this company out. They sought us. This was, I don't have my attorney here with me today to tell you, but we did look into whether or not this was allowed, what the liability would be, as Representative Stith questioned us about, and determined that we were within our statutory authority to accept the funds.
Follow up? Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but certainly want to understand the issue as we look to the.
Could you, I get you to pull your mic just a little bit closer, Tara? Thank you.
According to the explanation of the request, it indicates it's 260 million in liquidated digital assets comprising more than 1 million properties. Can you help me understand that? And really what I'm asking for in that first piece is $260 million in liquidated digital assets. Does that mean the digital asset has been converted to USD? To the American dollar?
Mr. Chairman, that's
Yes.
correct, Senator.
And so we hold $260 million in cash.
Yes.
And when we say comprising more than $1 million in properties, or more than 1 million properties, not dollars, what does that mean?
Mr. Chairman, that means 1 million owners.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can,
Please.
how do we know that there's 1 million owners to that $260 million digital currency?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, when the company sent the money to us, they sent a list of those owners that they had, that they were able to identify. For more than a year prior to them turning the funds over, they attempted to contact all of their owners, track them down, just like we would do with unclaimed property. And so they sent us a list of the owners that they had and their last known addresses, and as much information as they had about them.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can, I know this is, I don't expect you to know exactly. Are the majority, or do you know the number of how many of those are Americans?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know that. I can sure find out. But Mr. Chairman, I don't know that there are very many, because we're doing wires to foreign countries with these.
Interesting.
So I
So just to do the math, that's the average of $26 per customer. So a great deal of these, as the deputy indicated, are going to be, at or less than what the wiring fee is. So
And so, Mr. Chairman, I also would like to follow up based on the explanation of the request, if I can. You indicate later on in the explanation that not only do exams require legal contracts and other documents, holders are challenging exams more frequently, often retaining legal counsel, resulting in the division's increased need for legal support. Can you expound on that, of what are the circumstances when an individual retains legal counsel to challenge the unclaimed property determination? I mean, I don't have a clear picture of what that looks like.
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Senator, so for instance, we had a case where there's $1 million claim, and someone came forward and said, this is my $1 million. And we said, okay, you have to prove it to us, we have to go through all the things. And there was something about the way that this person was explaining things that was suspect, right? So we weren't following the math necessarily. And it came to our attention just prior to, we were about ready to say, well, we can't disprove it. We've done the whole whiteboarding, we've done all of this due diligence, spent a whole lot of time, spent a whole lot of effort that, with our attorney, he spent a lot of time tracing down the legitimacy of the claim. Right before we were about to release the funds, another owner came and said, hey, they challenged it. They said, these are actually my funds. This person says that they were entitled to the money, but actually, so what'll happen is a business will turn over the money, and maybe it's a family business. And so now someone has come forward and they'll say, this is my $1 million. So someone will come, and then it was challenged, and they retained an attorney to say, hey, don't give this money to them. He's not the ideal, he's not the owner of this, he's not because he is actually a stepchild of this person. And I am related to the child and I'm a cousin, and I'm this, whatever their relationship is. And so they are now saying, stop, don't release the money, he's not the right person. And so now we get into this so now they have to go, and one attorney will sue the attorney of the other party to determine who is the rightful owner and heir of those funds. And so we get caught in the middle of that. Our attorney has to, is working with the other attorneys. There's great stories in unclaimed property. One time we, in this particular case, they were providing information and materials to us. And in an email, which an attorney clearly should not and probably didn't mean to send to us, had said, they're not figuring it out yet that he's not the son, something like that. And so we're like, well, we figured it out now, So we suspected that, and then that attorney, so these are the kinds of things. So then lawyers, now we don't reach out to the other party and say, hey, if you better retain a lawyer because this is about to happen, but we do just sort of just the facts man kind of a thing. And so in those cases, when there are large amounts of money, people do retain counsel to determine ownership and rightful heirage to those funds.
Mr. Chairman?
Just one follow-up if I can. Please. How many attorneys are currently in the office?
Mr. Chairman and Senator, we have 2 attorneys. We have our general counsel for all of the treasurer's office matters, and then we have a counsel dedicated to investment matters.
And that's the same amount of attorneys that we had 6 years ago when we were at 19 billion, and now we're at 31 billion.
So Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Deputy Williams. Is there a threshold in which you put that kind of due diligence in terms of the dollar value? You're not going to put that kind of effort into a $10 claim that you would for $1 million claim, I would suspect, but is there a threshold in which you do the research more or less in depth?
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Thank you. Representative Walters, no, there is no threshold. If we have people who are contesting the amount of money, we don't generally have someone contesting $10, but if it's $500 and you have people that are unhappy that there's a stepchild relationship, or we have people who say, I'm the only child, my siblings have died. And the other 2 siblings are like, I'm right here, I'm alive. And so, so we do not have a threshold. We try to ensure that every single penny is returned to the rightful owner, and really do a lot of due diligence to make sure that we take it very seriously, that we're fiduciaries on behalf of these folks, their last line, so.
And speaking of pennies, we've got one customer that every 5 years, we have to send him a check for 1 penny. And then it comes back in. And so that's one of the reasons why we need to move forward with legislation. There's some of these things that are just, he probably just loves to not cash that check. He's probably got 3 or 4 of them actually. This went clear back into Treasurer Gordon's time. And so she's probably got 3 of them hanging on the wall.
Okay, anything further? Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Don, I'm curious if another $500 million comes through currency, what's the vetting process? I mean, how many people look at that situation and then determine, yes, it's a good deal that we accept this, or it's a bad deal if we accept it? I guess I'm worried about some of the liabilities, and if we're going to tie up 15 or 20 lawyers, if we have a lot of people come to the door and say, hey, part of this is my money.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Representative, are you asking, would we accept another 500 million?
Mr. Chairman, if I could clarify it, yeah, I want to know who's all in the determination of that. Is it just one person, or is it the one attorney? Does it go through the governor's office? I know it doesn't come through the legislature. Yeah, that's what my question is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Representative. No, it's not just one person. So our unclaimed property administrator, it brings it to the attorney when our general counsel. And then we do actually confer with the Attorney General's office. They don't have the ultimate responsibility for the program. They don't step in and do any of the work for us, but they certainly provide counsel. As you know, it's always helpful to have more heads parsing over a decision like this. And I would also answer the question you didn't ask, and that is no, we would not take another 500 million because we're not positioned to handle it. Now that we have some frame of reference for the amount of work that's tied into this, now it might, I shouldn't say no categorically. I mean, if it was a US citizen, I don't know. I think it's just been a lot of hard work, especially with these foreign owners, to try to parse out how to figure out how to return the funds to them via the wire process. It's been a real learning experience for us, and it's really taken a lot of time. And we believe it'll be time consuming more so up front, just because more owners. So the funny story about that, the Coinbase folks were talking to their people, they were notifying, hey, we're gonna convert your assets, we're gonna turn them into cash, we're gonna send them to Wyoming, we're gonna do it. And a lot of those people thought it was fraud from their own, because everybody's so hypersensitive to fraud issues. And so once they finally did it, they sent the letters, they went to look at their Coinbase account, their money was gone. So all of a sudden, we had an influx of people who actually wanted to get their money back then because they hadn't believed it as they went. So we do believe that this rush of folks will be more than at the beginning than we will have as we go along, as we start to be able to look for these folks. But in the meantime, it is a lot of people, and I know that we wouldn't do it soon, that's for sure, because we're pretty busy.
Mr. Co-Chair.
So my question is, it sounds to me like the primary legal work performed is not all that complicated. And so why do you need a senior attorney to perform those provisions? I mean, that's the highest paid attorneys that we have versus someone who's not a senior attorney.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
And Mr. Co-Chair, we're just asking for another attorney. I mean, I think that I don't think it's routine. I would say that these are not routine issues. I think they're very complex issues, and I think that and that's why I've got my general counsel working 60 to 80 hours a week on some of this unclaimed property stuff. It's not, some of it's routine, some of it's general, but some of it's not. If you don't want, we're going through, the state is going through, A&I is doing an attorney classification study. And so what we did is we requested an attorney at the level of the other attorney, our investment attorney in the office, because as far as we're concerned, we believe that they would be equal positions. And and this again, as the treasurer pointed out, when we were talking about the reclassification, we had to present what the job duties would be for this person to A&I, who then approved this proposed classification, which could change with that as a result of that classification study that A&I is doing. But this was the best recommendation that we got from A&I for the services that we're requesting.
And it took us how many months to get our investment attorney replaced, Don?
Oh, gosh, Mr. Treasurer,
Yeah.
it took 14 months to find a replacement for that attorney.
So, if we could get another attorney in there that has the bandwidth to essentially learn and be cross-trained in these other positions, then I think that's worth a lot to the treasurer's office. And at this level, it's going to take a long time to hire somebody right out of law school probably couldn't do this, but you're going to have somebody with a good number of years of experience to handle it. So we're hoping to build the bench in one regard, but build the capacity that's needed to do the work that's there.
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
My phone a friend came through. The nexus to Wyoming for the transfer of assets, Senator Grew and Senator Nethercott, apparently Coinbase created a company in Wyoming to which the assets were transferred. Then that was how we didn't just take them from a random company, they had a Wyoming company, absolutely. And then as far as the unclaimed property, just to reiterate a little bit about what the level of the attorney required, the things that the unclaimed property, the areas of law that they have to know, they cover bankruptcy law, insurance law, secured transactions, contracts, divorce, criminal law, oil and gas. There's just a wide range of things that this attorney needs to be aware of rather than a specialized area. And I think that does require a higher degree, higher caliber of attorney.
Follow up. Okay. Anything else from the committee on this topic? Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Ken Pendergraft, Taos District 29. I have a twofold question, and I'm trying to form a concept of how different agencies look from the outside. And so the first question I would like to know considers the span of control. By that, I mean how many people do each supervisor oversee? And then the second one has to do with just crew management, things that I've been involved with for a long time. I often found it was easier to promote from within and then hire somebody at the bottom and bring them in like that. Now, your office has some pretty specialized skills, so that compounds that. I just wondering if you could help me a little bit with how that looks in your office.
Mr. Chairman, Representative, it's hard to speak, to look at you with the microphone as well. Through the chairman, Mr. Chair, Representative, the span of control of our as far as supervisory is all controlled through A&I, just like other agencies. Right now, I personally have the whole admin division under my direct supervision, which is about 11 or 12 people, which is too many. And so one of the things that I think will be helpful through the attorney study is that one of my attorneys, my general counsel, will be a supervisor who will then be the supervisor of the investment attorney and our paralegal in the office, and hopefully our unclaimed property attorney that you're going to let us have. As far as for the other divisions, it's all through A&I. Representative at 1 to 8, 1 to 5, just depends on the division or unit. Mr. Chairman.
A follow-up?
Just the promotion from within.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're going to talk about that in our next unit, how we would really like to be able to do some promoting from within our investment division. As far as with accounting, we have financial accounting, it's called FIAC 10, and it's a senior accounting analyst, and we have actually had really good luck in our reconciliation and analysis unit within the financial accounting division of hiring someone into that 10 position, an accountant into that 10 position, and being able to promote them into the principal accountant 11 positions. We're trying to do, I think that with our request here to reclassify those 10 positions to 11s for within our operations unit, and then we're also requesting in another 10, that will open a pipeline of being able to promote. Within our unclaimed property division, we just recently, last week, were able to promote a person from that unit up to the auditor position. So I think, Mr. Chairman and Representative, we've had good luck with that and really do find that to be beneficial and useful. Now, we do not, it's not a given, I will say that. We're very discriminating in how we, and whom we employ in the office. We have a real strict set of standards that we apply to those folks and expectations. And so we also use that, so we haven't necessarily promoted every single person. We haven't had people that we've wanted to promote. We don't have places for them to go. So it's some of each side.
Good, okay. Anything else? Anything else from the committee, incoming committee? All right, nothing? Please proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 24, there's another request for postage in unclaimed property. So one of the things that we have, that exists in statute is that we have to inform people via US Postal Service about like these due diligence letters. And one of the things that we would like to have changed if we were able, one of the things that would change and what we'd request to have changed is that we would be able to email, but until we have that, we still have to mail. And postage rates, as you know, have gone up drastically over the last few years, and we have never requested an increase. And it's just now that we cannot, our 200 series operational expenses are not sufficient to accommodate this increase anymore. And again, we do have some investment income that we will be earning from the new funds in the budget, and believe that $14,000 would be an appropriate amount to help us cover our postage expenses.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don, does that biennialize or ongoing?
Mr. Chairman, this would be an ongoing amount and not biennialized.
Thank you.
Anything else from the committee?
But it's just another reason why we'd like to get somebody to run that new unclaimed properties bill, because we're
Senator Nethercott.
Mr. Chairman, your co-chairman has about $22 in unclaimed property at the treasurer's office. Maybe he can handle that.
Yeah, my late brother, it's like $100, but it would take $1,000 worth of work to get the money distributed to my 8 brothers and sisters and myself, so you guys get to keep it for a while.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, and that is the rub for some families, that they
Yeah.
just don't want to pursue that.
There might be a way that if we get a bill in front of the legislature, that we can address issues just like that, maybe some type of a. You tried to do that? Try to
Yeah.
do it again?
Anything else? Okay, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next request is on page 25, still within unclaimed property. This is a combination of, this is for maintenance agreement. What we did is we made a mistake. Years ago, the way that the state's accounting system operates, we used to pay for all contracts in the 900 series. They moved the maintenance contracts to the 200 series. We did not, our agency never moved the money that had been appropriated for those maintenance contracts from the 900 series to the 200 series. So our 200 series budget had accommodated the expenses for this maintenance contract over time. It has now come to be that the price of that maintenance contract is too much for our 200 series to absorb now. We're kind of absorbing postage, we're absorbing multiple things that we just, it's just come to a point where we can't do it anymore. So we're asking for $15,000 to accommodate that maintenance contract. Now, you might ask, as I did, well, why don't we just move it from the 900 series? Well, the contract costs in the 900 series have also gone up. So we used that budget authority within the 900 series to pay for the costs of our unclaimed property management system contract. So there just simply isn't enough money to do that.
Questions? All right,
All
proceed.
right, and the final request within unclaimed property is on page 26. This is the one that I started to say has two, the request is twofold. You can see in the table on this page that we've got that 292 maintenance contract amount, and we've got some for contract services in the 900 series. The 200 series maintenance contract is for this chatbot. So we employed the use of a chatbot to assist in handling this influx of claims. And we've actually been using it prior to this Coinbase, but now that Coinbase is online, we could use some we could use some language translation services in our chatbot, because again, we are dealing with people from all over the country. And so current chatbot has some languages that it will translate, like Spanish, but it doesn't have things for languages that I don't even know the names of, for countries that we're unable to communicate with folks. And so that would be $7,200 that we'd be requesting for language translation services in our chatbot. The $40,000 is for a fraud prevention component. We already have this. This would be a foreign fraud prevention component that we would like to add to our unclaimed property management system. It would cost $40,000. And we believe that this investment of $40,000, given the amount, the hundreds of millions of dollars that we've accepted to return to folks and make sure that they are all, we're very serious about trying to get it to the right person, and any tool that will help us to prevent fraud is something that we're very interested in. And we do believe that we can afford this. We will have some, this cost of the fund, it is $40,000. It's ongoing, but it will not be biennialized.
Questions? All right, proceed.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now we're moving into the investment unit. Unit 901, our first request is going to be on page 34. It's actually
Mr.
our
Chairman.
only one.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, before we go into that, on page 24, on your postage, you make a comparison to 2017 and 2018. Is there any reason you went that far back to make your comparison of the price increase?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, that's the last time we had any money added to our postage budget. So it's been that long that we've just tried to maintain the ability to pay for postage in spite of rate increases with no increase in our budget.
Okay.
Okay,
Please
thank you, Mr.
proceed.
Chairman. Back to Unit 0901, starting on page 34. To Representative Pendergrass' question a little bit, we have identified the need in the agency to be able to, we're still trying to build that bench out. As you know, the amount of money that we have invested and how it continues to grow and the number of asset classes that we continue to invest in has just really ballooned and blossomed over the years, and it requires a whole lot of expertise, and we really devote a lot of time and training to these folks, and we'd like to retain them. So this is a nod to retention. It is a nod to being able to grow people within our own agency, providing opportunities for them to advance so that they don't have to feel like they need to leave. So what we would like is a new senior investment officer position and a new investment officer position. I know this says we want 2 senior officers, but I'll get to that. Senior investment officers. So we have some folks that have been with our agency as maybe a senior analyst and an investment officer that are ready to promote. And maybe they're not ready to promote. Maybe it's going to be another year before they're ready to promote. But we have nowhere for these folks to go. The only way that they will ever move up is to move on. And we're very concerned about that because we do have a lot invested in them. And we also we think they're awesome. We think they're great. They've contributed a lot of money. You can see the evidence of that. And we'd like to be able to manage our folks within that division. And what that would do is if we have these open positions, when those folks are ready to be promoted, there's somewhere for them to go. That leaves their position ready for someone else to be potentially promoted into. And then our analyst positions, which is our entry-level position where we can just begin to grow that talent from within. And this, at the same time, builds a bench across these asset classes that we're investing in so that we have more people who know about those asset classes. So right now, we have a senior investment officer who invests in private equity. We don't have a backup for him should he decide to move on, So what we'd like to be able to have to do is to just spread this knowledge across these positions and be able to do what Representative Pendergrass was asking about, is to be able to try to promote from within. The other senior investment officer position, you all have probably heard that our chief investment officer, Patrick Fleming, will be retiring at this summer at June, end of the fiscal year. So right now, currently, he is not just our chief investment officer, but he also manages hedge funds. And once he is gone, it will be unreasonable to expect a new chief investment officer to manage hedge funds. And we do have a significant book of business in hedge funds, and we need to be able to put that somewhere. So one of those senior investment officer positions would be for the purpose of managing hedge funds.
No, and opportunistic, because there's another 800 million in opportunistic that Patrick is the lead on that. So,
Questions? Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but you also want to remove the footnote number 1?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yes, we do.
And so can you tell me what the intent of that was and then why you think we should remove it?
Mr. Chairman, Representative, I can speculate what the intent was.
Okay.
By the Joint Appropriations Committee, and specifically Mr. Co-Chairman. I believe that was, I believe it's related to performance compensation. And when we started performance compensation, we, the state, there was a concern, wow, we're paying these people a lot of money and now we're gonna pay them more money with performance compensation. We don't want the treasurer's office or the retirement system to be able to just give these raises to people who are making this kind of money, but also then it provides a commensurate raise in performance compensation. And so I believe that was the reason behind the footnote, was so that we would not, so I'm not gonna say we would get ahead of, but I believe the feeling was that there was some potential for us to get ahead of ourselves somehow. What it has done, Mr. Chairman, is sort of crippled us, really. And maybe if that's the intention, then it's working. But right now, I mean, we had to come to you with a letter a couple of years ago to be able to promote somebody from an analyst to an open senior analyst position in our office, because it says no compensation increases without the permission of the legislature. And so, as you know, it can take, if we have somebody that's worthy of promotion, it could take 2 years before we could actually promote that person. And by 2 years, the chances of that person sticking around to see if the legislature may or may not approve that are slim to none.
Yes, please.
So help me understand the 2-year component. What I'm understanding, as I read the footnote, is that there can't be any increase in compensation in the treasurer's office, investment employees listed without further legislative authorization. So then where does the 2 years come in?
Okay, so when you request a budget, say it's a budget year, you have to put your budget in July, goes through the legislative process, we don't get it till the next July, there's 1 year. Say it's a supplemental budget and we're not allowed to do we're not supposed to do supplemental budgets. The treasurer's office, we are fortunate in that we were able to write a letter, and for instance, we're in a supplemental session right now. But by the time you determine that in the middle of the year, say it's January, and you say, you know what, I want to promote my guy, but I have to wait till July, till I can ask for it, then I have to wait till the session ends, and then I have to wait till the next July. It's just a ridiculous amount of time to be able to manage an office.
and I guess one of the reasons why you might characterize it as ridiculous, you have to put yourself in the chair of the employee that's sitting there. Let's say they're making $150,000 plus their bonus, and they can actually double that by walking out the door. And so do they want to tell their family that I'm going to defer $200,000 of income for a year to wait to stay in Wyoming? And I tell you, we got a couple of good Wyoming kids that are in that situation today. And these are the guys that have been there for 5+ years. And, they've had some promotions, but they're at the level that they could easily walk away, either one of them, and add $200,000 plus to their salary overnight.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
And I think as we note in here, there's the governor notes that this is kind of your baby, Mr. Elected Treasurer, but he suggests if we make this change for you, we look at those thugs sitting behind you, that maybe we do the same. So I guess my point is it's an issue that we put in place on both investment teams,
Absolutely.
the Treasurer's Office and the Retirement Center.
Yeah.
And so I think our concern is to certainly have some control on the growth of compensation. Your argument, it appears here then is, yeah, but control doesn't mean strangulation. I'm just trying to get in my head if I'm.
And I think what we've been hoping to lead to is, at some point in time for our office and probably the Secretary of State's office and the business division anyway, that you would have some kind of a control by having a block grant in there, but some flexibility. The problem that you get into is that, and these are in two different words, in areas of specialization that we have, sometimes the beginning wages, whether it's in accounting or whether it's in investment, you can't necessarily hire somebody at the midpoint or below. You've got to basically go to the top. But in the areas where the beginning entry sometimes in accounting and different in analysts, that maybe you can hire at below the midpoint. But if you can't have anything where you can bump that up a little bit from time to time, well, frankly, it makes it too much like a government job and not like working in the private industry.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Representative.
Please. So, listen, we love you guys and appreciate all the good things you're doing, and you make this sound pretty benign, but I think that it really does open up and broaden your ability to do stuff within your investment group. For example, I think you could, if you're talking about, you can change from one category to another. I mean, it's a pretty huge step, is it not? I mean, you can.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Representative, it can be, but say we didn't do that. And for instance, I've done this before, and I know the retirement system does too. They're saying, oof, I'm not gonna go from, just for pretend numbers, 80,000 to 100,000. That's a pretty big jump. I'd like to go maybe 80 to 85, 80 or 90 or whatever it is. If I do that, and then I say, okay, in a year, and this person has performed, and I would like to go, and I would like to say, okay, from 85, I would like to go to 90 now. I can't do that without coming to you. And so we just have so the way that the treasurer described, so we just say, okay, why wouldn't we bump them up to the top? Because we're never gonna get a chance for them to get to that point. It forces us to do things that we might not ordinarily make those decisions to do.
Yeah.
Senator Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm back on page 35, I guess it is, and that C justification. The end of that sentence says you're manging its appropriation. I didn't know manging was a word, but I looked it up, and it says that you're doing nothing, you're just hanging out.
Mr.
And
Chairman.
so are you doing nothing, hanging out on the appropriation, or is that a misspelling?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. That is a clear misspelling, but it does kind of go to what we're talking about. We're kind of hogtied, aren't we? We're just manging along.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah. Thanks for calling that to our.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So if we do remove this footnote as requested, how much money will that add to your budget?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Sherwood, none. It'll just allow us to not have to come to you every time we want to make a management decision.
Yeah.
Follow up, Representative Sherwood? Is there any follow-up?
Thank you. For clarification, so I'm all for honoring our hardworking employees, right? If somebody's working and creating an investment for our taxpayer dollars, their compensations should go up. So in terms of a management decision to promote somebody, then there's additional funds coming out of the investment income, is that correct?
Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Thank you. Representative Sherwood, we can't spend more than we have budgeted. So our budget is the same. So any decision that we would have to make would have to be within our appropriated funds. We can't just make up money.
I think that the thing that we want to draw attention to, and frankly, Patrick does a much better job of explaining this to me, and he's on, he might chime in, is that the money that we spend on our internal investment basically offsets the need to have external investment managers. And what we pay internally is just a fraction of what's paid to investment managers. So the more that we can basically build the capacity out and the succession capacity out within our internal managers, the more money that we can take on. And that will actually make things much more, I guess, defensible in all manners to the amount of money we spend.
Representative Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is helpful for me, Don. So you're asking for these positions. And if we allow those positions, it's giving you some capacity within your budget, but you're still constrained by your budget depending on what those positions do. So there is a limit of what you can do. You just can't randomly go ahead and raise them all to whatever. These positions are going to dictate your ability to move your
That's
budget.
right.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, that's exactly right.
What would really be
Representative.
nice on some of these is where there's a wide range of 50,000 plus, I think, between the regular investment manager and the senior investment manager. What would be nice is that we could bring the person in there, and they're necessarily not doing senior investment management job on day one. We could bring them in there at a lower level, and then in a year, 2 years, then we could raise them up when their proficiency and when their output actually would make more sense. Now, if you guys say, well, that's a great idea, Kurt, we're just going to say your first hire is going to be less than what a senior investment manager can make. Well, we don't know, right? And then that just gets us into a harder situation and makes it harder if we got to wait a year or 2 years between that. Because frankly, I think most of these guys, as I say, could probably, there's two of them, we could probably, get another 200 grand the day after tomorrow, because there's people headhunting them, it seems like all the time.
CIO Fleming has come online, and Patrick, did you have something you wanted to contribute? I heard the treasurer mention your name, and up you popped.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's Patrick Fleming, CIO for the Treasurer's Office. No, I think the treasurer explained it great. I didn't have anything else to add. He just said if I was there, so I came on. But I'm here for questions to back him up. But no, I thought he explained it exactly. What we're trying to do is to reduce the fees that we pay to external managers to be able to develop the expertise internally and keep the development of Wyoming people and the management of our assets in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Can I, at your leave, Mr. Chairman, explain one of those things that we did do just
Sure.
last year?
Absolutely.
Is that we were able to take tens of millions of dollars out of BlackRock and put them in the management internally. And the reason we did that, not so much because it was BlackRock, but because the internal managers were actually getting a much higher return on that asset class. And so those are the type of things that we're trying to do.
Thank you. Anything else on this particular matter before we move on to the next? Anything else? Seeing none, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The final unit is 0903, where we have two requests. On page 41, you might recall that I talked about how we wanted to reclassify two senior accounting analyst positions within the agency, within that, and in fact, unit within financial accounting. This position is the one whose lead responsibility is WyoStar programs and any of our other investment pools. And we have a WyoStar 3 that's coming on that we're working to their local government investment pools, more commonly known as WyoStar. So WyoStar 1 and 2, we have WyoStar 3 coming on. And then we do have the mine reclamation bonding for voluntary assigned trust through Department of Environmental Quality that would be set up this way. And this position, of course, backs up cash management. So the requirements for this accounting analyst are the same as they are for our cash management analyst. And so, again, we have vetted this reclassification through A&I, HR department. And we are requesting $26,951 to be able to reclassify this to a principal accountant.
Questions? Questions? All right, please
All right.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The final request is on page 43, still within Unit 0903. And this would be for, I also talked about this, the new FIAC 10, which is a senior accounting analyst. So if we promote two folks that we have, we still have some work there that needs to be done at that 10 position. And that would be some of the executing transactions with the custodial bank, the things that we have listed here, posting the directives, pulling reports, assisting with the audit and monthly reconciliations. And what it does too, which is another added layer of internal controls. One of the things we've been experiencing in the statewide audit this year, at all agencies for that matter, there are new government standards and accounting standards that require a great deal of attention on internal controls. Now, internal controls have always been important, obviously, but the attention and the intention behind this now through the GASB, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, is intense. And so, and our auditors have advised that they would be even more intense. And so we believe that that's just another green flag for the addition of this position. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes our request for supplemental budget.
Representative Larson.
Mrs. Williams, I have two questions. The first one is just as on page 41, where you talk about a backup for the cash management desk. Living in a different world than you do, trying to figure out what that was. So on 43, it talks about the daily cash management between the custodial bank and the depository bank. Is that what we're talking about there when we talk about cash management?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So every day we do a comparison, yes, between our custodial bank and our depository bank. So we have to, and we're providing an amount of money for the investment team to always know what the cash balance is so that we know how much is available to be invested according to our asset allocation, and that this team is responsible for that.
Okay, thank you. And then, Mr. Chairman, just to follow up, we have noted, as LSO reviewed, we noticed a couple of perhaps mathematical errors in your compensation packages on insurance and that needs to be corrected, and I think that you're aware of that, but as we consider moving forward with that, we'd make those adjustments, and you're okay with that?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, yes, I was notified by the budget office, so they enter all of our personnel information, and it would appear to me as an old budget girl myself, is that maybe these were entered as family insurance, and usually with vacant positions, we use single insurance, and so those adjustments have been recommended by the budget department.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else before they wrap up? All right, concluding remarks?
Yeah,
Treasurer's Office?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I would just like to say, I know we've had, I think, a huge amount of scrutiny on our performance pay package for us and WRS. We went through an extensive third-party audit, essentially came out fairly clean with a few suggestions. But the thing that, as I was going through that, 140 or 50 or whatever pages of that report, that really stood out to me was when they audited the actual amount of alpha or excess funds that over the course since 2020 we actually had made. And the amount of excess funds over what the benchmark was over $600 million. And if you put it in perspective to expenses in the investment area, that's enough more to pay for more than 100 years of salary. So what we get back from the internal investing of our funds, it really has been, I think, one of the best investments that the state could have ever made in any area. And so just, the extra $600 million, it wasn't out of thin air, it was out of hard work and understanding the markets and understanding the asset allocations and how we could actually improve on the benchmarks on their returns. So we want to keep this team together. We want to make sure that we have a succession plan, so when somebody walks out the door, we got somebody there that can actually step in, even at a lower pay grade, and not miss a lick going forward. There's a lot of different things that we're doing in the, and have done in essentially a $31 billion investment firm, and we've got how many clients, Don? I think it's well over 1,000 clients that we actually have that we deal with directly, whether it's state agencies, whether it's political subdivisions, whether it's boards and commissions. It's a lot that this particular agency affects. And essentially I want to say that being on the Wyoming Retirement Board, they've got a story that I would say is even more compulsive and compelling in a lot of different ways, as far as the amount of money that comes out into every community. So they're usually, I think, well enough to talk to themselves. I know they also have access to a report that we don't have as far as salaries, and that's called the McLagan Report. And I hope that you ask them about that. I think they're going to try to have that. And essentially, from what I recall, is that our base salary is probably at about 30% of market, and after performance, it's around the median. And the amount of people that we actually have in our office is well below the average amount of people that other people have in their office for the same size of funds. So not only we're doing it for a lesser price, basically for each employee, we're doing it with fewer employees, and we're getting outstanding results. So we want to keep that capacity going, and we want to make sure that there won't be any missteps by making sure we have a succession plan in place, for now, when Patrick moves through this system and in the future. But Patrick's doing, personally over 2.1, almost $2.2 billion. And that's going to take another investment officer. And we want to have some of the flexibility, although fully realizing that we can't relinquish control of the budget from the legislature. It's impossible unless we want to lose our tax-free status that we have. So that's something in our immunity, sovereign immunity. If we advocate, or anybody advocates that we don't want you guys looking over our shoulder and telling us what we can and can't do, we don't want to lose our sovereign immunity. But those are things that I think needed to be kind of put in perspective. And I want to take this time to essentially publicly say that I really enjoyed working with our CIO. He was a hell of a mentor to me and to a lot of these guys. So with that, I'll bid you guys adieu, and I don't know whether Don or Patrick has any, closing remarks, but I want to thank the opportunity for working with the legislature and giving us the flexibility in a lot of ways to be able to make a lot more money for the state and for its citizens, and to defer the amount of taxes that they actually have to be compelled to be levied against them. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and Merry Christmas to you all. Next up, we have the Department of Administration and Information. Or maybe not. Here they come. Yeah, well, it's quite a few people. Let's get going. We're an hour and a half behind. So I'd repeat the admonition from this morning. Unless you have some really burning updates, we'd like you to jump right into your exception requests, and let's get through those, step through those as quickly as we can, but still do them justice. So with that, Director Bach, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Tricia Bach. I'm the director with A&I. Good afternoon, JAC, and new members as well. I'm here with Deputy Director Russ Noel. He's behind me. Rory Horsley, who I think you've seen quite often and will quite often see. She is our CFO, but she takes on quite a few different roles with other agencies as well. And our GSD Administrator, Andrew Coleman. Also behind me is Jake Strickling. He is a new hire. He is, if you remember, he gave us a 13 last year. He's who we hired as our project manager. So, and I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to go through the budget page by page. I don't have an overview, so we'll try to make it as quick as possible. We have 4 requests this session, this supplemental. And if we start on page 21, that is our first request. We're not requesting any funding. It's simply an AWAC to continue, and statutorily, we have to come back and ask for that. We did have an AWAC for the Saturday shift. Worked out really well this year. There was a docent that came over as an AWAC for the Saturday shift, and it worked out quite well. So that's just asking for the actual AWAC position to continue. The funding comes from the $350,000 appropriation from the original.
Mr. Co-Chair.
So I'm curious about that, because when we created that position for the person downstairs who was running the shop, that position was going to be basically a Tuesday through Saturday position, at least during the summer. And I note that in your hiring, you're not advertising the job to be that way. And so, and instead it was a single AWAC just working that Saturday.
Mr. Chairman, Co-Chair Nicholas, when we discussed it originally, we've discussed a couple different ways to do it. The first year we did it, we tried to split the duties between the person who was downstairs, Lori Gallus, and then my admin, who is Brittany Bannister. So they split it back and forth. It was difficult to have somebody come in on Saturday, not have an admin on one day of the week. We've decided that the AWAC position works much better because they can be dedicated to that Saturday. We can find a retiree. And I will say generally it worked really well when we had Mr. Kessler do that last year. He is now, I believe, the Sergeant at Arms in the House. So yes, he is not going to probably be able to do that this summer, but we haven't decided. So the position we're advertising right now, because Lori is leaving us again, is Monday through Friday. It is very difficult to find somebody to do the Tuesday through Saturday who isn't a current state employee, understanding how it all works. I would be reluctant to put somebody in here by themselves who was not a state employee like Lori. Lori, of course, can do that. Rick Kessler can do that. A new employee, it would be difficult to be on their own on Saturday without having constant questions. So we decided to go with an AWAC, and it worked out really well. We ended up, it's not a lot of money that has come out of the 350. I think we're at 19,000 out of that $350,000 appropriation. Now, we do have the tourism dollars that we spent that just got billed. So there's an additional 22,000 for tourism advertising for next year.
You know, I understand that, but part of the justification for creating Lori's position was that person would work on Saturdays. So you wouldn't need an AWAC. And so that's just the rub on.
I understand, and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chair, I understand that. We do anticipate also the desire that some have to open Saturday and Sunday. I do believe we would have a difficult time with Wednesday through Sunday as well. So I do think the AWAC serves this building better. That way we have somebody Monday through Friday for, especially during the session, when you have people coming in and out during the summer. I think we still need that there because we do have quite a few tourists that come through. And I do have some numbers on, we have seen 2,333 total for just the Saturday in the summertime, from Labor Day to the beginning of September, I believe it was this year.
Anything else on this exception request? Anyone? All right, please move on to number 2.
Thank you. If you go to page 26, hang on, my purse is getting hung up. A&I has recently acquired 5 properties. So we have the Riverton office building. We have the parcel across the street that is now under contract. We will be closing hopefully before the end of the month, or at least mid-January. We have purchased through the SBC request and unanimous decision by SBC to purchase the old J.C. Penney building, which we call the DEQ building. DEQ is in that building along with one rental. That will close this month. We also had 2 houses in the 26th in the block, 319 West 26th and 321 West 26th. So given the amount of square footage that we have acquired and will acquire, we are requesting essentially 3 custodians for the DEQ building. So we will have a lead custodian and 2 custodians, which is what we would have, for example, in the Supreme Court. That's what we have over at the Supreme Court as well. So that's what your exception requests on page 26 is for the new acquisitions, and I would stand for any questions.
Mr. Co-Chair.
So I am curious about that part. For DEQ, for example, on their rent they paid, that covered the custodial services. Is that right?
That was part of the rent that they paid. They paid the landlord for custodial services, correct?
Right, so my question is, by purchasing the building, and then us taking over the custodial services, we just want to make sure we're getting the right bang for our buck. And so there's an offset in one fashion or another, either from the rents or the annual rental payments for the upkeep and maintenance and the long-term use of the building. So we're adding 3 new positions. Where is the offset? Or is there a way to calculate it?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chair, I can get a calculation for you. However, I do believe these positions that we have are a TDBG 01, 2 of them. They get paid $15.50 an hour. Then there's a lead, which is somewhere around 18 probably an hour. So they are very lower level positions. It's not like we're putting a supervisor or an administrator over there. I can get you the difference in cost, but I believe we had figured out, we paid $5,950,000 for the building. We originally was $6 million, and we got $50,000 off for getting it done in December. So when we figured out the cost for that, the cost to buy the building versus having the lease, I can tell you when I get the information what year that is that we make that up, but I don't have that in front of me right now.
Well, I guess what's important is to let everyone know that you went through, and the state went through that, an economic analysis of the
Yes.
benefits, pros and cons. And then part of that economic analysis is we're going to have to hire someone to be the janitors, to do the operations, but in the long run, it will save us money.
It is, I just don't have that date. When we went through the SBC, we had all of that information, which is why it was a unanimous decision. I don't want to say it was a no-brainer, but it was a pretty good deal that we got compared to the lease that we have, but I just don't have that in front of me right now.
Yeah, I just think it would be useful, particularly for a new appropriations committee, to understand how we got here.
Sure, and I can get you that information and send that over to both sides, both old and new.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, you say we're acquiring 3 new buildings in Cheyenne, and the largest is 60,000 square feet. Adding other 2, are we at 80,000 square feet we're adding, or how many is it? And where are these buildings? Are they close to us here, or?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, the DEQ building, that's the largest building that we are purchasing in Cheyenne, and that's the old JCPenney building on 17th Street. I believe it's 206, 17th Street. The other 2 are houses, 2 houses trying to obtain the buildings in this Capitol Square area. So that has been a project ongoing for years, that both the SBC and the master planning. So there are 2 houses. We are looking at the best use for those 2 houses here on the corner. One of them could be utilized as an office space. However, it's not ADA compliant. So we're looking at what that would cost to make that into an actual office building. But really, those 2, one was $350,000, the other was $320,000. Those are essentially bought to try to get that square. It's right on the other side.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Anything else on this exception request? Okay.
Mr. Co-Chair,
yes.
I would just note that for at least 25 years, if not 30 years, the state has had contingency funds available to the SBC in order to acquire buildings that come for sale that are in the vicinity or proximity of the Capitol, so that we can, over time, centralize state government and facilitate all our services that we provide, all those type of things, and not have houses and other things in between, so that it's more of a cohesive unit. It also helps on energy distributions for our buildings, all those types of things. And so, and it's also, it's been a political flux on occasion on whether or not to buy or not to buy. And every time that we don't, we pay the price. We end up paying twice as much for what we can get, if we can get it off the market, and actually negotiate before it goes on the market. And so particularly for those 2 houses, we've been trying to get possession of those houses for a long time. And so it was just coincidence that all kind of happened at once like that. But so I'm glad we got it done. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chair, exactly, and that's the contingency fund for the SBC is specifically for when a building like DEQ comes up, when session is not happening, that the SBC gets together and says, is this workable? We've brought up a couple issues that have, a couple of places that have come up. Some are not viable and some are. DEQ was like I said, it was pretty much a no-brainer to go after that building. I think a good example of when we didn't buy is some of the buildings here on Capitol that were for sale back in like 2016, 2017, that we probably should have bought, that we didn't. Those are the ones that are, it does get a little frustrating when you realize you should have bought a building that you didn't.
Some of us tried.
I know. Okay.
Anything else on this exception request? All right, number 3. Oh, wait, Senator Nethercott. No? Okay.
The next is a similar request on page 31. Also, 2 positions. These are trades positions for the acquiring of the additional square footage. If you remember last year, we had asked, based on our additional square footage over the years, we really needed another electrician and a locksmith. And so those positions we were very happy to get. with these two additional buildings, we really do need a HVAC and a carpenter, I believe it's a carpenter, to take over those issues that are going to come up with Riverton, with DEQ. That square footage has increased by 31%. So we're not asking for 31% of positions. We're just asking for 2 new trades positions so that we can help cover that additional work that's going to come out of those buildings. A lot of what you'll see here, it says 5 new properties. I want to make sure everybody understands that 4th property is a vacant piece of land that's adjacent to the Riverton property. So what's that? Oh, sorry.
Okay.
So that's on our page 31 and 32. And then our last exception is for the utilities for the additional buildings. It's a pretty straightforward request. 296,120 for the additional estimated utility costs. And you'll see in there that the request can be made contingent upon the purchase of the final property. I would say we're under contract for it all now. So that is the extent of our ask. And I also handed out, and I'll give some of the new members as well, the workforce report that we have online. That usually comes in handy during session, and if you have a bound copy, sometimes it's harder to lose, so.
Okay. Anything else for A&I from the committee or incoming? Senator Nethercott.
Thank you. Quick question here. I heard mentioned that we're acquiring additional vacant land next to the Riverton office building. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott, yes. It's a vacant piece of land through the SBC discussion. A lot of discussion back and forth on having some parking, having it a parking lot. It is right next to the building, and they thought the cost of it was reasonable enough that it made sense for us to purchase that with the contingency fund for the SBC.
It was my understanding, Mr. Chairman, follow-up, that the building came with a parking lot, which was one of the reasons why we decided to purchase a 50-year-old building. Is that true?
Mr. Chairman, it does, Senator Nethercott, it does come with a parking lot. However, this is another lot that we would be able to utilize, whether it's for that building or for another agency, to be able to utilize that land instead of having another entity purchase that property across from our state office building.
How many acres are we buying of vacant land in Riverton?
It's not 50, I don't think. How many acres? 13? Sorry, Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott, 13 acres.
How much are we paying for the 13 acres of field space next to the Riverton office building with the current parking lot?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott, I believe it's $180,000.
Oh, that is not fair. For 13 acres in Riverton, Wyoming?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott, my understanding, and it's not what they had talked about, to have YDOT driver services as a training lot for their certifications like they do out here by the airport. If you've ever seen them do it out here at the airport, they do driver services training. They need a large parking lot. That's one of the uses that they've discussed using that property for.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, I'm just going to let this be known. It's
Sure.
my understanding that that lot would be in a residential neighborhood, or right on or near a residential neighborhood. So I just, yes. So I just let that be known, my continuation of the concerns over the Riverton office building, that we continue to acquire and add money to this neighborhood. Thank you.
All right. Anything else for this agency? All right. Thank you very much, and Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy New Year
Christmas.
to you.
Thank you.
I want to let the
Don't leave yet.
retirement system know that we are going to move the We the People up. They've got a deadline for a bus they've got to hit. So we're gonna bring on We the People with your indulgence retirement system. Come on up, and I show 4 on the list, but it looks like, is it just the 4 of you? Okay. All right, and you've seen what we've been doing. You got to pull those microphones close so that we can hear your voices. And if you start with introducing yourself, and then I know that you've got some material or something to present to us, and other than that, I don't know. So
Yes.
who's going to kick us off here?
You live?
All right, the floor is yours.
I'm Olivia Hardesty.
I'm Aaron Bowers.
I'm Eliana Walton. And I'm Cora Condos. We are from Sheridan High School, and we are representing Unit 6 for We the People. And today, we're really grateful to have this opportunity to speak to you all about how this program has impacted us. And I'll pass it off to Aaron.
So the first thing we want to start off by saying is that if there's one thing this country needs, it's more civic education for children and young adults. We think that this is extremely important, of course. To be civically educated is to learn about not just how the government in this country works, it's to learn about why this country is so great and the steps that lead us to that. And of course, without being civically educated, when we are civically educated, it is easier and better for us to fill the shoes of those that walked before us, such as yourselves. We need more children and young adults in this world that know how the country works, that know how to lead us forward in the right direction. And this program is the best way to do it, in our opinion.
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna start or continue by talking about how We the People has impacted us. For me personally, before I joined this class, I had people come up to me and say, why do you plan on taking We the People if you aren't gonna be a lawyer? And at that point, I didn't really have an answer, but now my answer is that I know all 4 of us have become better speakers. We better understand the government that is a big part of our country. We better understand the Wyoming government, and we have overall learned how to problem solve and use evidence and find concrete evidence to make decisions within our communities.
And in my personal experience, going along with people asking me why I did this, it has taught me so much, and I just wanted to learn more about the government, as all young adults should, and how this works. And my sister has come up to me, and she's been like, Ella, how does this work? How does this work? And then I'll tell her. and now she's educated too. And she didn't do We the People, and so this is a way for me to help educate other young adults.
I hope I don't sound like a broken record here, but going along with other kids in our school asking us, why do you do this? I ask them, why aren't you doing this? This is for me, I have not been more passionate about anything in school in my life. The bottom line is it's fun. It is fun, it's great, it educates us. It's the greatest thing, and my passion for learning about the United States, for learning about the history of it and its government, this sparked a new breath of life in my world, Without this, I do believe that this program will shape me for the rest of my life. There's nothing, you can see, you get what I'm trying to say. My entire life has changed because of this program.
To continue on to what my colleagues have said, this program has been very inspiring to me, and it's shown me what it means to have to be dedicated and work hard. There have been other programs, such as athletic programs that I've been involved in with my school, but this one really takes it to another level. Our school has a great reputation and a great legacy of success in our program, and
it's really, inspired me to want to continue this program and continue their success. And the only way of doing this is putting in time and effort and getting to know more about the government. And it's also helped me to form great connections with my peers and my classmates, and also our teacher, Mr. Thomas. He's also a huge inspiration because of his dedication that he has to the program. And I just think that this experience is a great opportunity for so many, and I would love if it could continue and if others around the state could get opportunities such as this as well.
As well as this, I started watching the news daily. I know what's going on now.
And that can be seen for many people within our program. Before we had entered into this commitment, we would have never said that we were passionate about government. And now all of us like having these conversations with people like you all about how our system works. And we are super grateful for the support that the legislature has given us and the appropriations we have had in the past, because it allows students like us, normal people living daily lives in Hodunkie, Wyoming, Sheridan, to be able to learn more about the greater good, the greater system of the U.S. government.
I just want to add on to what they said real quick. If before I went into this program, we're Unit 6, one of our essays has to deal with social media and the governance of it. Before this program, if you asked me if I wanted to sit down and talk about how we're going to govern social media, I would have said no. Let's talk about putting salary caps in baseball so the New York Yankees aren't so as good as they are. But I love having conversations like this. I love talking about, federal versus states' rights, about, like I said, the governance of social media, how another one of our essays deals with how athletes competing in global athletic competitions are ambassadors for their country. It is so interesting, and we need more of it, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask, for those who are not familiar with the program, and it's statewide, there's many schools that participate. I know you have to read the Federalist Papers, and then you'll be pitted against another team where you're given a topic you have to debate back and forth. What all is involved? And I didn't know there were essays involved. Kind of want you to walk us through briefly what's involved in being on We the People.
Well, Mr. Chairman, on We the People, we're given 3 essay topics, as you said, and we have to write an essay about them. And so we are given 4 minutes to read the essay, and then we're given 6 minutes to answer questions concerning any topic on the essay and the question. So we really have to take time and a lot of effort to be prepared and understand the topic so that we can show our understanding. And our teacher likes to tell us, don't worry more about it being like a question and answer. You want to try to make it like a conversation. So it's like free flowing between you and the judges, where you're and your colleagues here, where you're getting your ideas out and just showing what you know.
Okay. And the competition is what, you have to go to local, then regional, then state, or is it one big state meet?
First, you compete at districts, which is what we're doing today. And in Wyoming, districts and state are combined. So we will go to awards dinner tonight where the top 6 teams are announced. And then those top 6 teams will compete our remaining 2 essays tomorrow to find out who wins the state competition. And first place does get a place in the national competition in Washington, D.C.
Oh, and where is this taking place tomorrow?
Here. Here.
In the Capitol?
Yes.
Oh.
No, not this room.
Wow, okay. I did not know that. What room?
Mr. Chairman, it's in the Capitol connector downstairs.
Oh, okay, super. All right, well, I imagine you'll draw quite a crowd. Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, you know it.
Anything from the panel, from the current panel or the incoming? Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for sharing your passion and enthusiasm with us. Just makes my heart swell to think about all of you guys moving forward in your communities, running for office, being in public service, and being in dialogue with your peers and one another. I would encourage you guys to keep in touch with us. We want to learn from you. You know, when you talked about governance of social media, I want to hear from you guys, your opinions on that. So please, as topics come to us or other committees, continue to make your voices heard. Thank you.
Representative Larson.
Thank you. I'd like to know from each of you, just pick one thing that's the biggest concern for the kids your age in Wyoming right now. So tell us the biggest thing that's on your radar.
Yes.
Let's start down here.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, I would say that largely there are a lot of issues with social media. Addiction on social media is a huge thing. We can see in Utah that they are trying to work towards banning the app TikTok because of their addictive algorithms. And we have also seen that our national government has worked to ban TikTok due to national security.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, one thing I would say is the biggest concern is kids, similar to what my colleague Olivia said, was having addiction to not just social media, but their phones and becoming disconnected from each other and from the world. Honestly, I would say it's quite sad. The conversations that we have in our classroom with each other, you can't have one of those conversations for even 5 minutes with some of the kids in our school because they're going to pull out their phone and they're going to, you know, for the lack of a better phrase, say, whatever, I don't care about this. I'm just going to go scroll through social media. I believe this program will help kids become more civically engaged, more engaged in their community, and the bottom line, engaged overall.
Okay, Ella?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, one of my main concerns is how they are going to vote in the future if they are not educated like we are.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, I would say my biggest concern, kind of along the lines of Ella, is that many kids in our school do not understand how big of an impact they can make in today's world, in today's government, with voting, with being civically educated and carrying out civic virtue and all things along those lines. I think that living in Wyoming, many kids in our communities and in our school don't think that they have an impact. And if there's anything that this program has proven to us, it's that we can make a difference.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, Representative Walters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I ask this for all the folks on the internet so they know more about the program. You said you're in high school. What is the age requirements and time commitment for you to be in We the People?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Representative Walters. All four of us here are juniors in high school, but we also have one senior in our class. So at Sheridan High School, the class is offered to juniors and seniors. However, across the state, other age levels can compete. You just have to be a high school student, and then it just goes along the rules of what your school takes for the age level.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Walters, with concerning the time commitment, we take so much time outside of school, outside of class, researching and studying and memorizing our essays in order to compete at this level.
Mr. Chairman, Representative Walters, if I may, really quick, as for the time commitment, I don't believe there is a set time commitment. It can be however much you want. If you want to play your essays audibly on repeat as you sleep, we would love to do that. We are inspired to do that now. It can be from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed, I'm thinking about We the People and how to make this a better country and the impact I can make on the world.
Did you have something you want? Okay, all right, Senator Nethercutt.
Mr. Chairman, there's a proposed bill to ban cell phone usage in schools. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercutt, our school has already moved forward with the cell phone ban this year. In previous years, we had a pretty lax policy where you were only really allowed to have it during passing periods and lunchtime, but due to the enforcement across different classrooms, it became an issue, and so our school decided to completely take phones off of the bill, I guess. And so we are no longer allowed to use our phones, which in the beginning, a lot of us panicked. We're like, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do? But we have definitely adapted around it, and I believe it's really helped a lot of learning and a lot of focus for students, now we're more focused on the classroom rather than the things that are going on our phones.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott, I think that along with what Olivia said, the cell phone ban has made us realize not only have we adapted to it, we realize that there's really no need for it. You know, some kids might ask questions like, how am I going to contact my parents? You know, well, that's what the phone in the office is for. I think that the cell phone restriction in schools is actually great. It forces people to have conversations with each other. It forces them to be engaged in their school, in their community, without being addicted to their cell phone.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Nethercott, not only has this impacted us in school, but there have been multiple times outside of school where our unit has gotten together without our phones, without the internet, and we've just talked about government and politics. And that's another reason why this class is very beneficial to students, is it gives us an outlet and ways to communicate without our cell phones.
All right, anything else from the panel? Yeah, thank you so much, appreciate it, great. Well, I know you've got a deadline, you've got to leave, but I do want to say, when I get back home, have Mr. Thomas call me. I'd like to get together with you guys. This is not the time, but you said you understand Wyoming state government, and I'd like to have you explain it to me. All right, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity to talk to you guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. All right, now the retirement system,
Very nice.
right? Yep. Short break, let's see. It's 3:04, let's take a break till 3:20, and we'll take on the retirement system when we get back. All right, we're back from break with the retirement system, and I don't know who's going to lead off the parade. All right, Tom, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Chapman. I'm the, is this not on? Oh, there we go, sorry. Good afternoon. My name is Tom Chapman. I am Chair of the Wyoming Retirement System. My family and I have been in Wyoming now for 30-plus years. Started by, as Representative Walters knows, owning a ranch and then morphing into the snowmobile ski business. I've been on the retirement board now for 14 years. Been appointed by three different governors. And I wanted just to give a really quick note on sort of what has been the biggest impact to the retirement system as far as returns, investment returns. One of the things, I guess, before I do that, taking a step back, 1 out of every 6 people in Wyoming is part of the retirement system. 80% of the benefits paid out to Wyomingites stay in the state of Wyoming. So it's an incredibly important function that the retirement system plays. Investments drive effectively about 70% of the contributions. So the better we do on investments, the less the state pays. Going to investments. One of the biggest impacts that I've seen over my time has been a change in staffing. I've been through 3 CIO turnovers. Sam Masudi, who's our CIO today, has been with us now for 10 years, more than 10 years, 11. And so before that, we would have a turnover, and those would be the biggest impact on our returns. So having the stability of staff is incredibly important. So I guess why are we here, or certainly why are myself and my vice chair, Eric Nelson, we are very concerned about the ability to hold on to staff. The treasurer's office had just touched upon the ability about promoting from within. This is something to us that's very important. The way we think about this is sort of, we want to run this business like a private business effectively. And what would a private business do but try to promote from within? And so we are very concerned because we have put now time, resources into training these individuals who, by the way, are some of the best in the business. Again, I don't want to necessarily toot our own horns, but when I joined, we were dead last as far as state pensions 10-plus years ago, and today we're in the 2nd percentile, or effectively there's one other pension that's better than us out of 63 pensions. It's a pretty remarkable improvement. And I thank to Dave and Sam and the team, et cetera. And so what we want to try to do is hold on to what we have. We're not here to ask for new positions, but what we want to do is try to protect what we have. And I guess I might pass on the mic here to our vice chair, but again, that's the reasoning for here, so go ahead.
Thank you, Tom. Mr. Chairman, by way of introduction, my name is Eric Nelson. I've been a member of the Retirement System Board now going on 10 years. I came on just after I think Sam was hired, so I didn't have to experience that turnover. By way of my background, I currently serve as the city attorney for Casper and am appointed to the WRS board as the local government representative. And I can tell you from a local government perspective, the retirement system and the health of it is immensely important when it comes to recruiting and retaining our police officers, our firemen, all of our teachers, and public servants. And in the time that I've been associated with the pension system, to echo some of Mr. Chapman's comments, what I've seen is really a stabilization in the investment team and just a continued refinement in the knowledge base and depth of knowledge in that team. And I would share the concern that he has with regard to retaining these very qualified individuals, most of whom are homegrown right here from the state of Wyoming. And so what we're here today is to ask for the ability to promote from within on a timely basis so that we can operate the system as a private business might, and keep that talent here in Wyoming. And so with that, without further ado, I'll turn it over to our director, Dave Swindell.
Mr. Chairman, I'm David Swindell. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Retirement System. This is Agency 072, the Wyoming Retirement System, and as the Board Chair and Vice Chair described, we are one of the smallest state agencies that you deal with, but we have one of the largest footprints with 36,000 pensioners, 41,000 active members. We paid out $800 million in benefits last year, and almost 80% of those stayed in the state, $624 million. Those numbers are, of course, significant to your constituents. Those payments reached 4.5% of the state's total population, 11% of Wyoming households, represents more than 3% of total Wyoming income as measured by the Census Bureau. So the impact's quite large, you know that. WRS is 80% local. Although state employees are our largest single group, the largest group overall is K through 12. And when you look at all the firefighters, all the police officers.
I'd ask if, can we proceed to the exception request?
We can.
Yeah, thank you.
So, per the chairman's guidance, I refer you to page 19 of our budget request where the exception request starts. There's only one exception request. We're not asking for a new position. We're asking for additional compensation flexibility for our junior investment team. That's our one analyst and one senior analyst. The existing footnote says compensation for these folks cannot be increased without further legislative authorization. The request is for legislative authorization. Our suggestion to you is to delegate the authority and use your board. Let the board determine whether the analyst is qualified for promotion to senior analyst and whether the senior analyst is qualified to promotion to investment officer, and provide the requisite budget authority commensurate with those decisions. I provided a table that is on page 21 of the budget request that illustrates the range of options. The board could decide, and we're not going to make any adjustments. More than likely, they would promote the analyst and the senior analyst because these are highly qualified people that have now demonstrated time and service, time and grade. They've completed their CFA certifications, and they have demonstrated their abilities and their ability for future increased responsibilities. I read every memo that comes in for an investment, and I can tell you that the quality of the work that comes from these folks is just top-notch. They are in a position where they will progress in the industry. The question is whether they will progress here or not. And so that is the ask, plain and simple.
The ask is for a dollar amount and for the discretion to distribute that dollar amount, any or none, amongst these three positions? Or two?
It's really two positions.
Two positions. All right, thank you. Questions? Representative Stith.
Mr. Chairman, Director Swindell, obviously, as you know, over the past 3 years, the Department of Administration and Information went through a big review of employee compensation, employee salaries, trying to get people to market, et cetera. You're very familiar with that. So given that we went through this process, and perhaps this is just repeating what you've already said, but why does the existing market parity position, or whatever it's called, not work for your agency?
And Mr. Chairman, Representative Stith, the investment professionals in the Wyoming retirement system were excluded from that process, and they were not part of that. Their salaries are controlled by legislative action in statute.
Okay, good answer. Other questions? Other questions from the current panel, incoming panel? Questions? All right, seeing none. Looks like you were pretty, Representative Stith.
Mr. Chairman, just as a follow-up then, obviously, I think we all believe in paying people their market what they're worth. Do you have a way of measuring what the market rate for these individuals would be?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Stith, yes, we do. We participate in a couple of salary surveys in the investment industry every year. There's the CBIZ survey, and there's the survey called the McLaughlin survey administered by Aon, which is industry consultant. The results in all those surveys are quite consistent. Bottom line is the base wages established by statute are basically bottom quartile. Whether it's a senior investment officer, analyst, or senior analyst, it varies a little bit, but right at bottom quartile. When you add the performance compensation, then the compensation rises close, but in the analyst case, I think just shy of median. So, and the investment compensation is paid out over 3 years, so it's not quite, it's not rated the same quite as base salary, but with the performance compensation, we're close.
Okay, anything else from anybody? Mr. Co-Chair.
So I think it would be useful for, even for me, but particularly for other folks who are not familiar with this process, is to kind of do a structure of your investment team, how long they've been in place and what their salaries are, and have that breakdown with the performance comp on top of their regular schedule comp, but we just increased that last year, I believe. And then identify the positions, so we have this hierarchy of positions. Because I think in both instances now, in the treasurer's office and in the retirement, we've only been doing this for 4, 5, 6 years. And so we didn't really take into consideration when we created this footnote and when we created the performance compensation, at what point people move up from the lower position, from a basic analysis to the next levels, if those positions don't open up. And what the overall impact is if you lose those folks you've been training for the last 2 years or 5 years or 6 years, where they're going to go, and then what are you going to do? Essentially, you're starting over at those new positions. And I think if we can see this juxtaposed over time and positions, it would help us construct an alternative to footnote 1 that gives some flexibility in doing that. Without, part of the problem is, depending on how you read it and what authority we take away, it can be a 40% increase in pay, literally. And I don't think that's what we have in mind, particularly when they're already the highest paid folks in the state in some regards. But I do think that we don't want to lose what we've done and what we put together. And I'm just trying to think of how we can best kind of reconstruct the schedule of payouts and salaries for those folks that you need to keep. They ought to be a senior investment analyst, but that position is not open to them. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, we can do that. We'll get that right to you. I do think those are very fair comments. It is a case of, we've been very successful in hiring these folks. We've been very successful in training them. They have attained industry-recognized metrics, and if we were a private firm, we'd promote them in place. And we need to find a way to do that and still respect the legislature's need to keep a lid on this thing, as you say.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Co-Chair? Anything else from the panel? Tom, please.
Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman Kinski. Sam Masudi, CIO of Retirement System. Mr. Co-Chairman. About 4 or 5 years ago, Treasury and we sat down and we came up with requirements for every level, and they're in what are called the JCQs, which are the hiring criteria and promotion criteria for A&I. So they're all subject to that, but it's all very clear in terms of what they have to do and achieve to get promotions. So we can get that to you.
Okay. Anything else? Any concluding comments? Tom?
No, because I know we're in a hurry. And so, but I do want to thank you all. I think, again, we're very, over the 14 years I've been involved, the system's in great shape. Say our investment team is one of the best in the country, and I want to make sure that the state of Wyoming keeps it that way. And that's why I think it's very important that we invest in our investing systems, and that's true with Treasury as well. As
As a former liaison, I can tell you, it's an impressive operation. It really is. Thank you all. And
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
All right, next up, Enterprise Technology Services, ETS, Jeff Kleins, CIO. And you have somebody with you as well, Jeff.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Jeff Kleins, Director for ETS, State CIO. With me, I have Erica Legursky, Deputy CIO for the state, and Kristen Burkhart. For sake of time, I will just say we're grateful for this time, and I'd like to echo what the governor said this morning. It's an honor to work with the dedicated and thoughtful individuals who serve on this committee. We have a handful, or we have just a few, and for sake of time, we'll jump directly in, and I'm going to turn that over to our CFO to walk through the asks.
Thank you, Director Kleins. Mr. Chairman, as he already mentioned, my name is Kristen Burkhart. I'm the brand-new CFO for ETS. Some of you may recognize me. I was previously CFO for the Department of Workforce Services, so I'm quite familiar with the process. So I'm just going to go through our 3 exception requests by unit, and as you have questions, just let us know. So we'll start by turning to page 14, where you'll find our first exception request, which also happens to be our priority number 1. And this is for the replacement of network equipment that will be reaching the end of support and end of life. This request is for $957,532, and it is 100% generally funded. The governor has recommended approval of this one-time request.
I'm curious, I don't understand the equipment, but is there an option for us to outsource to a data center as opposed to running this equipment ourselves?
Mr. Chair, so the way that our current systems are architected and designed, these are what are called web application firewalls. It's part of the security structure for those systems that are currently hosted internal. You could outsource a lot of this, but then we would have to in turn, move a lot of the infrastructure and the systems that are currently hosted within the system as well. And that would be a fairly substantial technology re-architecture, redesign of systems.
In the long run, though, would it save money? I mean, if it's not something you could do over, the next biennium, somewhere down the line, does it make sense, especially as these things start to age out?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. So we look at moving things to the cloud every time they come up, and the cloud being, a vendor-managed system to see where it makes sense to be, fiscally feasible as well. That is definitely part of our assessment when we look at replacing systems.
Okay. Anything on this, anything from the panel on this exception request? From the incoming group? All right, no? Exception request number 2.
If you'll turn to the next page, page 15, This is our priority number 3, and this is for the transition of our enterprise platform from being a vendor-supported platform to an ETS-supported platform. This request is for $462,500. It's 100% generally funded, and the governor has recommended approval of this one-time request.
Could you explain it a little bit? And I mean, are you paying somebody outside now, and this is the cost to bring it inside? So are we saving money, saving more than the 462?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Yeah, that's a summary of it. It's a great summary. So this is a platform that was has been stood up within ETS that can be built upon. It's largely been built by vendors, and this represents just some funding to allow us to help bring that knowledge back inside. The vendor costs are fairly high per hour, and this allows us to have internal resources so that we don't have to worry so much about the bills that are going to come due at the end of the month or whatever for the consultants.
Okay, so for the benefit of the incoming committee, some brief memo that shows the cost benefit analysis on this. Otherwise, it looks like it's just an increase in spending. Mr. Co-Chair.
Yeah, I was just going to follow up on that. So tell us what the cost benefit is of doing it this way.
So to support the current platform, sorry, Mr. Chair, Co-Chair. So the current vendors are about $250 an hour to do the support and maintenance of this. So on these SaaS solutions or software as a service, there's care and feeding of it. They do updates every 6 months and something like that. So to do those kind of just maintaining the system, we would like to move that to our staff. It's a lot cheaper than $250 an hour. The other thing, as we bring in additional state agencies and processes and stuff, if we have internal staff that are trained up into the development in this environment, they will be able to handle those development requests, establish and modify new processes and apps within the system a lot cheaper than $250 an hour.
So I think what we need to know is how often you have to expend the $250 an hour, and what's the cost benefit analysis that you performed that says this is a good deal for us. So
sure, we'll get that to you.
Okay, Representative Zwanitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. During the regular budget session, we were noticing that we had a lot of vendors that no longer existed, or they quit. Anyway, there was not support. So how do you judge if a vendor is going to be around? I mean, when I see vendor, I wonder if it's one person and you're hoping that they're going to hang around, or is this vendor a company that 10 years from now, you guys will not be in front of us and say our support has decided to retire and we need to go to a totally different system?
Mr. Chair. Representative Zwanzer, that's a great observation, and I really appreciate that. In the tech landscape, that is a risk and a concern, as you'll see in our next ask as well. To add more complexity to it, there's vendors that get bought out and then licensing changes and things to that effect. For this platform in particular, that was something that ETS looked at when selecting the platform. They looked at the longevity and stuff. So ServiceNow as the platform here is one of the industry leading services and systems. So their economic, their longevity is one of the core names. So I have no concern of their longevity at this point in time.
Follow up? Okay. Anything else on this exception request from the panel? Incoming panel. All right, please proceed.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, moving along, our last request can be found on page 21. This is priority number 2, and this is for an increase in cost to our virtual hosting, our virtual cloud hosting. This request is for $293,200, and it will be funded 100% from our internal service fund. The governor has recommended approval of this effective April 1st of 2025, and he has also recommended it be included in our standard budget going forward in BFY 27.
Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see in your narrative that this is an estimate in the request, and I know there's a delay in the time that this is written and then you're in front of us. So if you could provide an update on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Sorry about that. We can definitely get that to you. I can say as of this point in time, this is still the current estimate. Working with the vendor, the license isn't up right away, so they won't give us an estimate until we're closer to the renewal time for the license.
Follow-up, Senator, or Representative? Sherwood? Any follow-up? Okay, Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you just kind of give me a little flavor on, it says, due to a substantial price increase, 200 to 250%, I know you don't know the final number. What happened?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, going back to the previous comment, this vendor was bought out by a venture capitalist.
Oh, I see.
Basically, and they changed the licensing structure.
Well, get ready, they're just getting started if they're venture capitalists. Okay, from the panel, any further questions on this particular item? On the VMware, whatever that is? Representative Baer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you just tell us, was this not anticipated before? I understand they were bought out, but if we were to not do this, what kind of situation would that put us in? What's the consequences of not doing this right now?
Mr. Chair. Representative Baer, thank you for the question. So it wasn't anticipated because of the buyout and the changing in the licensing, or the licensing structure, which led to this. If we don't do it, this is the core of a lot of the state's infrastructure, the servers, the file shares, print servers, and things like that. I will tell you, because of this, we are assessing and looking at everything that we're doing. Is this the vendor that we want to stay with going long-term? But again, this is a lot of our technical infrastructure within the state is built within this virtualization environment. And for those that don't know, the virtualization environment allows me to take one physical server and put 7, 8, 9 virtual servers on there to make the most use of the resources that come in the server. So I'm able to share the memory and the processors and the storage space across all of them and just assign what that is needed for each server. So it's just a way to make the physical hardware go farther. And that's other benefits, but that's a summary of it. Does that answer your question?
Follow-up.
Mr. Chairman, follow-up. Thank you. Director, if you could just tell me, is this time sensitive to the point where if it weren't taken care of in 2025, it would create those issues that you just described?
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yeah, so if we don't have the funding, the invoice will come due. They change the licensing model and stuff like that, and we would be at a loss for where to pay for the invoice. So.
Okay. And VMware is actually, that's a specific product. It's not a generic name for virtualization software. That's a particular product.
Yeah.
Is there other
Name brand.
virtualization software besides VMware?
Mr. Chair, yes, they are not to the maturity level, although a lot of companies are rapidly ramping up their maturity level. So we're looking at other companies and other solutions as well.
And is there anything in your licensing agreement that would limit how much they can jam it to you, or the sky's the limit?
Mr. Chair, there's nothing in our agreement that caps the increases.
Okay, Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm just trying to get a picture of how various agencies operate, how they're put together. So if I could find out, we mentioned span of control, how many people does each supervisor oversee? And I'm also curious, do you actually work in an office space or in a facility somewhere, or you pretty much work away in your homes? Are you traveling around the various agencies? Just if you could.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So for ETS specifically, Representative Pendergraft, our span of controls listed here at, is it 5?
If you could, you don't need to turn around.
Okay.
We need to hear you on the mic.
Thanks, sorry.
Yeah, that's all right.
It is 5 to 1. We are centrally located here in Cheyenne. The ETS building is down the street, the Emerson building. We have a lot of staff there. We do have a lot of staff throughout the state, especially our support services go to different agencies to support the computers and things like that. So we are fairly distributed as well, but our primary offices are here in Cheyenne.
You know, what you might do is maybe somebody can give the representative and other people from the Sheridan delegation a tour of your local offices, which is not, I mean, I've seen some, like one I saw was just a guy behind a cage with a chair, you know, trying to run a computer. And it might have changed since I saw it, but it was, it was a secure facility. And that's what they had for him. You know, I thought, well, it's, you know, probably the least fancy office in the whole state hierarchy. I don't assume that's typical, but I don't think anybody's out there really in the land of luxury.
Mr. Chair, we would love to host anybody that would like to come visit. We would be glad to show you around the ETS offices and tell you more about what we do.
Okay. Mr. Co-Chair.
Thank you. Would you just mind giving a quick, how long you've been in this position, where you came from a little bit? Just for the new folks.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so I've been in the position for 3 months now. For the 4.5 years prior to that, I was the CIO for the state of South Dakota.
So this is a step up.
Absolutely. It is for me. My family, I grew up in Denver. My family's from Western Wyoming, and I definitely consider Wyoming home. And it's got the most special part of my heart is here, especially in Western Wyoming, in the Star Valley area. So definitely a step up for me.
So as you know now, we've had quite a bit of turnover in this office. And it's a large learning curve for legislators who are not computer geeks to understand what we do, what you do, how much it costs, and how much time and effort it involves, and what we would do without you. So it's a big deal. And so getting you to get better educated with the new appropriations members, I think is critical in order just to get solid ground on. Because what we need is similar to what we just talked about with the last agency, is we need longevity in this office and consistency to make the best decisions. And so the dollar and I always astound us of what it costs. But that's just the nature of the beast. If we're going to play with this beast, we're stuck with it. And we have to have your expertise in order to make the best decisions. So you have to educate us on how to best handle this process. So we look forward to working with you.
Thank you. I am very excited to work with this group as well. Our intent is to get around the state to visit with legislators in their home area as well, and as well as welcome to visit us when they're in Cheyenne anytime.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for ETS from the panel? Okay, new incoming panel. All right, well, thank you very much, Mr. Kleins, and again, welcome aboard, and look forward to, I'll be gone, but you've got a lot of challenge, and I wish you all the best, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you, and Merry Christmas.
Erica? Next up, the Wyoming Tourism Board. Director Schober, welcome. It's always a pleasure to see you. And what a fun undertaking you have in your job over at Travel and Tourism. So And you've got some exception reports, and we look forward to hearing what you have in the way of exceptions. I'm certain they'll be exceptional, right?
Guaranteed,
All
Mr.
right.
Chairman, guaranteed.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, thank you very much for having us here today. My name is Diane Schober. I'm the Executive Director at the Wyoming Office of Tourism. And here with me is Kari Akins. Kari is our Director of Strategy and Business Operations. And I'd also like to acknowledge two of our Wyoming Tourism Board members who are here. Mr. Ken Barkey, who serves in an at-large position. Ken hails from Gillette. You may have eaten at his fine restaurant, the Prime Rib Restaurant in Gillette, one of the finest in the state. And Mr. John Johnson, who represents District 2 on the Wyoming Tourism Board with Johnson Restaurant Group. So glad that both of those could be with us. I know, Mr. Chairman, from where we've been listening today, that you'd like us just to move straight to the exception report rather than going through the preliminary part of our budget. Is that correct? Okay. So if we could have you turn then to page 18, that will start our supplemental request. And this should be a fairly brief conversation because we have had a conversation with you about this last year when we were here for our biennium budget request. But just to give you a quick background on this, in the Office of Tourism has always, even though we're structured a little bit differently and have a different setup for how our positions are equated to our office, we still adhere by the policies, procedures, and directives that are given to all executive branch agencies. And as the enterprise system, enterprise-wide, we were looking at equity adjustments for phase 1 and phase 2. That's when we got into the work and we're looking at our adjustment or our classifications and where it would hit the equity adjustments. And it was at Director Hibbard's suggestion then that we have our classifications of positions re-audited by HRD and come back at a time so that we could hit those 22 pay tables like the other state executive branch agencies have done. And so in the spring of 24, we started with this work with our office. We presented then a comprehensive report to HRD, to our colleagues, Tricia Bach and Aaron Williams over at the Human Resource Division, for their opportunity to go through this and do an analysis. And so that really brings us to where we are. Last year, when we were here before you in our appropriations hearing, you had asked about some classifications and were they, at 8s or 9s. And at that time, we had shared with you that we were planning to go through this process for state classifications for Office of Tourism staff and employees. A couple of things that I just want to bring out to you is that under the structure and post this audit, 25% of the tourism employees are not even at the entry level for the job classifications. And only 48% of our staff are even within the 90% range of these new market classifications. And so they're substantially behind. We were expecting that when we knew that we would be going through these classifications. And so the amount that's before you is $488,127. That includes salaries and benefits. That is a 15-month figure. We would want this to be available April 1st. The annual amount, if you're interested in that, is in the governor's recommendation at $390,502. And this would all come from Fund 441, which is through the statewide lodging tax that is dedicated to the operations of the Office of Tourism and the Tourism Board. If you would indulge me, I'd like to invite Aaron Williams and Tricia Bach to come up and just talk you through the process that they went through, the same process that other state agencies and executive branch agencies have gone through to get to this amount. And then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Would that be all right with you? Okay. All right.
Good afternoon, Chairman, Co-Chair, JAC members. My name's Tricia Bach. I am the Director of A&I. I'm going to turn this over to Aaron Williams, who can get a little bit better in the weeds on exactly what they did with tourism. Very similar to what we did with judicial branch last year as well. As Diane mentioned, they aren't really part of the classification system, so when they sent over the information, we did an initial audit, and some positions were low, some were high. They went through the process, and Aaron can explain a little more on how that went. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bach, Chairman Kinski, and Co-Chair Nicholas. As Diane had mentioned, she reached out to our office back in May, letting us know that she wanted us to assist her in looking at the classifications and the compensation for their positions. We originally sat down and reviewed Diane's spreadsheet. Carrie and her had put together a spreadsheet where they compared salaries to the open comp data. And as HRD always does, of course, we began to request more information. And even though they're not required to fall under our HAE classification methodology, that is the study and the process that we go through to make sure that we're benchmarking compensation appropriately. So Diane and team shared their class specifications with us for their positions, and we began running those through the HAE method of job evaluation and came up with the appropriate comparator classification if it was a state classified position. Now, of course, some of their positions are unique to the Business Council. We don't have a lot of similar positions, and so we reached out and did some comparisons in other state governments as well and found the best match that we could. Upon having those matches, we found that some positions they had classified maybe a little lower than we would have them classified, and a few of them were higher, but overall about 90%, 80 to 90%. We agreed with their classification leveling on those. So Diane and Carrie and I sat back down. We discussed some of those. We asked some more questions, and we agreed on a classification to present forward. Once the classification methodology was conducted, we did our benchmark matching, and then we ran some cost analysis. So initially, the Human Resources Division, once we're certain that we have the appropriate classification and benchmark, we run the existing staff salaries against the 90%, which is our state new minimum. And we also run some salary data to compare that to the market policy position as well. We were right in line with the numbers that the tourism had presented. And so even though we did not review the distribution methodology, they don't have a market merit matrix. We did not go as far as to take that, but we could justify salaries anywhere between $300,000 and the $521,000. That was on the top end if everybody were paid the MPP. So we did not have any concerns with the amount that the Department of Tourism had requested, knowing that the percentages that Diane shared with you, how far apart their employees were from even our 2022 market rate. We felt very strongly that they were just a phase behind the executive branch, kind of where we were when we presented to this legislative body the phase 2 increases.
So just to say it in a nutshell, that had they been part of the tranche 1 and tranche 2 of pay raises, this is what would happen, right?
Correct.
So they're actually behind a year.
That is correct,
Right.
Chairman Nichols.
And just having comparable pay raises that the other state employees receive. So I am curious, when you review the job descriptions that you receive from the agency, do you go interview the individual or any of the individual employees and figure out how accurate those actual descriptions are, what they do?
Chairman Kinski, Co-Chair Nicholas, we did not do that in this case. Typically, when the Human Resources Division does studies, we look at the JCQs, and if we have further questions, due to time constraints and that they don't really fall under our classification, we work closely with leadership. We had benchmark matched for tourism in the past. And so we had, 10 years ago data when we did review those and had interviews with the employees. And so we took that baseline data. And so if we saw some discrepancies in what we had seen then versus what we had seen now, we asked questions of how the jobs changed, and the agency was able to answer for us what those changes were. And so we did a lot of work on that. I think we found that the classifications were we're extremely close. The area where we found some discrepancies was maybe in the minimum qualifications for the positions. So the state has a matrix very clearly outlined minimum qualifications. So we have agreed with Diane that going forward, we're going to do a little bit more work cleaning those up. So in the future, benchmarking is even easier than it was this time.
It's funny, because my recollection in years gone by is that tourism didn't want to be reviewed by A&I because they were running their own show, and they kind of fell behind the wheel a little bit. So welcome back.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, these numbers on page 22 and 23 that show request salary, that's the increase to their salary, isn't it? That isn't their total salary, I hope.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, those are increases, and again, those are 15-month. I just want to make sure that you would understand that those are the 15-month increments that would be there.
Okay.
Not the total salaries.
Thank you.
Anything else from the panel? All right.
Mr. Chairman, could you please explain where we're going to get $488,000 for this? Do we need to take out a loan, or what do we got to do to finance that?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, there is money sitting in the fund, the WTA or Fund 441, as you would be familiar with it, to cover this incremental cost. And so it's there, and we're not asking for any general funds. Our entire agency is funded through non-general fund dollars, and this would come from the same source.
Mr. Chairman, so that would come out of your lodging tax money, is that correct? It would not come out of the general fund?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Anderson, that is correct.
Mr. Chairman?
Kevin Hibbard, please.
Thank you. The details on that fund can be found on page 16. The history and the projections of the fund balance.
Senator Guru.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This one's for you all. Okay, so we've gone through all these pay matrices to get everyone up to the MPP and all that. And now we're bringing on the misfit toy children over here who are off budget. Is there anyone left? Are there any other parts of it, like game and fish? Anyone else out there? Or does this gonna finish this up pretty much, that we're gonna kind of get everyone in line? Who are we missing?
Business Council would be an example. Community colleges on their block grant, University of Wyoming on their block grant would be other examples. Wyoming Energy Authority, while it's in the mix, it's not clear because it's also a quasi relationship too. But I do believe that with travel and tourism, clearly I appreciate their efforts going in the direction of my recommendation, was the best fit for the Joint Appropriations Committee.
Follow up?
Please.
And just want to make sure I understood, that $300,000 to $500,000, that's the total cost for this department, not, that's where we are here, and that's what's represented in these other pay matrices that Senator Anderson was asking about?
Chairman Kinski and Senator Guru, that's correct. And so the gap in that was depending on if that was a biennial request or the 15-month, and it was the difference between if they asked for the 90% or the MPP. You're correct.
And one last follow-up.
Yeah, please.
And then these other departments that we just talked about, that Kevin was talking about, Mr. Hibbard, sorry, Director Hibbard. Do we have a plan to bring them up as well? Because this is kind of it'd be great if we could get this kind of nipped here at some point along the way. And I know it's not under your control necessarily, but.
Mr. Chairman, the example of Director Schoberg coming on board with the recommendation that we had is an example of the best fit with us trying to achieve this for the enterprise, with the joint appropriation, with the legislature and everybody else. So the idea would be, yes, where the opportunities present themselves, to encourage folks to use this process to be successful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Anything else for this agency? Anyone? Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Schober, could you tell me what your turnover rate is for your department?
Mr. Chairman
Please.
and Representative Bear, right now we're fully staffed, And I like to look at it as a retention rate versus a turnover rate, but we run at about anywhere between 85 and 90% retention. And the 2 new hires that we just brought on and filled vacancies were from positions that you all had authorized last year. Otherwise, our team has been there, a year or more.
Okay, anything else? Oh, Representative, please, Angelos.
Mr. Chair and Director, can you tell me, what is span of control? What does that look like in your department?
Mr. Chairman and Representative Angelos, we have myself, and then I have 3 direct reports, and those are directors, and then we have 4 senior managers, and then everyone else is either independently managing programs or managing contracts of substantial size, and/or maybe some staff. With only 24 employees, it's not a big organization. We don't have any administrative support positions. Everyone is at some professional level or higher. And if you would like, just look at an org chart, I'd be happy to send that to you so you can see it visually. I think that would probably give you a better demonstration of what that looks like.
Okay.
I'll send it to all of you, just so you know.
All right. Thank you. Anybody else? All right. Seeing none, concluding remarks?
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Co-Chairman, members of the committee, incoming members of the Joint Appropriations Committee, thank you so much for taking a look at this. We see this as equalization, and as executive branch employees, the employees of the Office of Tourism work really hard. They're super proud of the work that we get to do. They're proud to be employees of the state of Wyoming. And as you've heard today, their timing and our timing is just a little bit behind. And so I would hope that you would take the governor's recommendation and see this as a favorable way to address the supplemental budget and these inequities in the market pay for the 24 employees at the Wyoming Office of Tourism.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
very
Mr.
much,
Chairman.
and, Merry Christmas.
Merry
Happy
Christmas
New
to
Year.
all of you. Yes.
Thank you. Members of the committee, we're got some time. So the co-chair and I have decided we're going to bring on an item of business that's scheduled for Wednesday, which is consideration of draft legislation relating to performance compensation. This would be 25 LSO 0389, Performance Compensation Investment Performance Amendment. Simple little bill.
Did we do Department of Revenue? Did we skip that?
Did we have Department of Revenue today?
See, I'm sure yours. But maybe Mike.
State Treasurer, Wyoming Retirement. Yeah, I don't have Department of Revenue on here.
Okay, this is older.
Let me see, when is Department of Revenue to come up? They're scheduled for Wednesday. Yeah, they're scheduled for Wednesday. Go ahead, sorry.
Okay, this bill is really simple. All it does is.
Yeah, so do you want Brian to go through it, or, yeah? Brian, please. And welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 25 LSO 389, draft 0.5. This is 33-01 in the online meeting materials. This is a bill draft that the committee requested in October after hearing reports concerning the performance compensation study that was completed this interim. This bill draft would amend how investment performance is calculated for purposes of determining performance compensation for investment staff for the State Treasurer's Office and the Wyoming Retirement System. So page 2, line 13 is just a conforming amendment. And then page 2, line 18. So for the performance compensation payments that are earned starting with next fiscal year, the way that would be calculated is the geometric average instead of the arithmetic average of the annual investment performance beginning that fiscal year and the 2 immediately preceding fiscal years. So, Mr. Chairman, just to put another way, changing to a geometric average instead of just adding the 3 years up and taking an average, this will take into account compounding from year to year for those 3 years and also better account for any volatility in returns. Then, Mr. Chairman, on page 4 of the bill draft is the same change in the retirement system statutes. with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer questions.
Okay, Mr. Co-Chair, and this was a study, I can't remember which firm, but it was a fairly small change, but they thought it more accurately reflected
Yeah,
performance.
I want you to go in a little bit more detail, if you will, Brian. I mean, it's not a significant amount of money. It's just a more appropriate way to match it with our performance compensation practices. Is that?
Mr. Chairman, Chairman Nicholas, I think that was what was conveyed to the committee, and I don't recall which entity it was that more thoroughly discussed this concept, but that is a general idea.
Go ahead.
Representative Larson.
So my recollection of that is we heard back from so we had two groups that done a performance compensation study, RVK, and then the other one done in both of them came back and noticed that seemed to be somewhat of an oddity in Wyoming and made the recommendation that we change it to this direction. Is my recollection somewhat accurate?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Representative Larson, I believe that's correct. And Mr. Chairman, maybe just to hedge off any other questions, I think the testimony in October was that this would result in a fairly minor change in the numbers for the calculation of performance compensation.
Yeah, in dollar amounts actually paid. It's just a better mechanism of calculating it.
Yeah.
Very
Okay.
simple.
To the panel? Move the bill.
You will.
Pardon?
Oh, fine.
Public comment? A member of the public. Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman, due to the extraordinary expedition of this item on the agenda, I did reach out to two entities affected by this and who were both before you today, the State Treasurer's Office and the Wyoming Retirement System. And I just wanted to advise you that the State Treasurer's Office has no comments and no objection, and the Wyoming Retirement System says WRS concurs with the proposal, and it should always have been geometric calculation, as that's the industry standard.
Okay, thank you. Okay, no public comment, closing public comment. Excuse me, go ahead, Representative Bear.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Fuller, based on this small change, will there be a fiscal note that will reflect that before the bill is presented to the body?
So, Mr. Chairman, Representative Bear, I anticipate this would go to budget fiscal review for a fiscal note, and each agency would be able to comment on the impact.
Okay. Is there a second? Second. Moved, second. Discussion from the committee. Hearing none, call the roll.
Members of the committee, the motion is on 24 LSO 0389, Working Draft 0.5. Representative Henderson.
Aye.
Representative Larson.
Aye.
Representative Sherwood.
Aye.
Representative Stith.
Aye.
Representative Walters.
Aye.
Representative Swanis or Dave.
Aye.
Senator Anderson.
Aye.
Senator Guru.
Aye.
Senator Nethercott. Senator Salazar.
Aye.
Co-Chairman Nicholas.
Aye.
Chairman Kinski.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the motion is agreed to. House bill or Senate file?
Senate file. We like to take the heavy lifts first.
Thank you for doing
Okay, Don, we're at the end of the day. You usually have a list of housekeeping items and so forth, so why don't you walk us through that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Today's information, you did have a handful of requests of agencies who will be getting back to you. There was some description of the activities or the agencies before you. They were either elected officials, provided enterprise services across the expanse of state government, or in the case of the judiciary branch, a separate branch of government. You will also see, and I think some of you are using the original agenda, and we will repass out the old agenda or the current agenda. That old agenda, I believe, was dated November 8th, and it had the Department of Revenue on there. The new agenda is December 6th. Tomorrow, you'll be hearing from higher education entities, some natural resources group, and importantly, at 3 o'clock or thereabouts, there will be seven bills before the committee, all relating to gaming. You have heard all of these, I believe, on 2 occasions from Ms. Ravalli, Reveille, excuse me, and the working group has made some modifications to a few of those previously. I anticipate, we develop these agendas well in advance and often before the supplemental budget requests are available, but I would anticipate the better part of the afternoon, frankly, would be available for discussion of these bills. Specifically, in the morning, Wyoming Community College Commission has an hour and 15 minutes to discuss one request, and that request was denied by the governor. So I think you'll move through the agencies rather expeditiously and have ample time to discuss legislation on gaming at the end of the day. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Co-Chair, anything before we break for the day? Anything from the committee before we break for the day? Incoming committee, comments, questions, brickbacks? All right, we will stand adjourned until, is it 8 a.m. tomorrow? 8 a.m. tomorrow, and it's Chairman Nicholas, so you know how he is. 8 a.m. means 8 a.m. sharp. Yeah. No, I know Bob will be here at 8.